The Naga's Mate by Celeste King, Book 1 of Nagas of Protheka.
He may slither and hiss, but he's all man where it counts.
Rule number 1 if you're a human woman on the alien hell world of Protheka. Don't ever stop running.
Because if the orcs that burned your village stop chasing you, that means you strayed into Nagaland, the territory of the fiercest nightmares on the planet.
Their scales and forked tongues will mesmerize you as they catch you. You'll end up like her, pet to a Naga general.
But you won't mind one bit. Because even though YouTube won't allow us to share the naughty bits here, you can get them from worldsofprotheka.com.
With code YouTube30, you score a 30% discount just for being a member of our YouTube audience.
Take a moment to like this video, to show your support and help us continue bringing free, full-length audiobooks to your ears.
Subscribe to stay up to date on all of your favorite stories and new audiobooks.
Thank you for choosing Celeste King's The Naga's Mate. Chapter 1. Gemma. I run through the woods, trying desperately to find anything that might give us any advantage as the orcs chase us down. But there are no sufficiently sharpened sticks, no properly club-like branches, or conveniently dropped swords just lying around. So I keep running, hoping something will change because we can't outrun these orcs forever. But some of us are going to falter sooner than others, the old or the young. They'll be the first to be captured again. We were all kept in a pen together, about 20 of us who were all snatched up when the orcs raided the low towns of the dark elf city of Leondor. Well, 20 at the start, but that number dropped daily whenever the orcs got hungry. Then one of the guards got drunk and passed out. We managed to reach his keys and unlock the cage. I told everyone to just run. But Ryan, one of the young men with us who'd always argued with me about everything, said we deserved revenge. I understand the impulse. The orcs made us watch as they ate the others, or butchered them to turn them into jerky. The lucky ones were dead before the orcs started. There were very few lucky ones. I'd have loved to see these orcs choke on their own blood, but my priority was to get everyone out safely. Ryan wanted to stab someone. So, he took the guard's dagger and tried to cut his throat. But it didn't work. Orc hide can only be pierced with weapons made of mithril. The guard was only watching over humans, so it must have been regular iron or something, because all it did was wake the guard up. To his credit, Ryan did his best to slow the orc down. Paying with his life to buy the 8 of us a few seconds was the best he could do for costing us the minutes we could have had otherwise. I've been a survivor all my life, but I've also never been good at watching others suffer. I turn and see Sasha, only 13 years old, lagging. I turn to Mary and Joshua. They're 20. Adults, capable. They might make it fine on their own, but the others I worry about. I could keep running, let the others falter, and the orcs stop to gather them. I could be free, but I couldn't live with myself knowing I didn't at least try to save the others. Everyone scatter. Make them divide up or pick a target, I say, hopefully, loud enough for everyone to hear, but not loud enough for the orcs to find out what I'm doing. Though this is part of my plan, I keep to myself. I slow down and fall in beside Sasha. Mary and Joshua look back at me. I wave them off. Just go. Then I turn to the girl and point left. Go that way. Hide if you can. Live. I hope she makes it, but I can't waste any more time. Not if I'm going to try to save the others. I turn and run. Not right for the orcs, but veering off to the right and back, putting me much closer to them than any of the others. And then I scream. I'm terrified. Anyone with a lick of sense would be. But I lay it on thick. I need them to follow me. When I turn to look behind me, I think it worked. I don't know if they all are coming for me, but from the crashing sounds and roared curses hurled in my general direction, I'm sure I have at least a handful after me. Next step, don't die. I've been pretty good about sticking to that plan my whole life. I've survived 31 years, always trying to stay just one step ahead of death. I lost my parents young, growing up on the streets, and I did my best to keep the other street kids alive and out of the clutches of the dark elves who would use them for their twisted pleasures. Sometimes I was more successful than others. I remembered each of the ones I failed. I keep it as a list in my head. Our 3 weeks in captivity made the list so much longer. And that's why I'm doing this. If I can save the rest of them, it'll be worth it. But as noble as self-sacrifice may be, I'm not looking to become orc food. I want to survive too. So even as I scream my lungs out, I run. The sounds of breaking branches and stomping feet are getting closer. I turn just in time to see a machete coming at me. I dodge. Then there's another one to my right, and I manage to duck under that strike as well. I think I count 5. That must mean most of them came for me. I hope the others make it. If I had a proper weapon, I might be able to take on one orc, but even that would be a challenge. Most of my fighting has been against other humans on the street, trying to harass other suffering humans. But I don't have a weapon, and there are 5 of them, all trying to cut me in two. I fling a handful of dirt into an orc's face and make a scrambling run. There's a small ridge. If I can get to the top of that, I'd have a better vantage point to pick out where to run next. My lungs are already burning, and my legs feel like they're on fire, but I push past the pain and run. I skid to a halt when I see that on the other side of the ridge is about 20 feet of empty sky, followed by treetops. I don't know how far it is to the ground. The canopy is too thick, but I'm sure it's more than enough to kill me. I turn, and the orcs have cut off my chance of escape. They know they have me cornered, and they advance slowly, not out of caution. No, they like the taste of fear in their meat. But I don't plan on giving them the satisfaction. But my options here are limited. I can't fight them. I can't outrun them. But I can jump. I had a good run. There were a lot of things I never got to do, like learn to read, fall in love, get drunk, have kids, raise a family. But maybe me dying here means Sasha can live to go to do those things for me. Maybe it means Mary and Joshua can figure out they're crazy for each other. Maybe it means all the others get to be free. I feel the tears on my cheeks. At first I hate myself for crying, for being weak, but then I realise I'm not sad. I'm happy. It's a good death. The orcs advance towards me. The leader, an orc who's half a head taller than the rest with a big scar on his nose, says, "There's nowhere left to run, little girl. Why don't you come here before you fall? You gave a good chase, but it's over. Damn, you..." As far as final words go, they are not the most eloquent, but I never learned to read, so I haven't had the chance to study up on famous last words. Oh well. I fling myself off the cliff, hoping that the impact is enough to kill me instantly. I deserve that at least, a quick, painless death. When I smash into the first branch, I realise that's not going to be what I'll get. The impact knocks the wind out of me, and I crash into more and more branches. I think for a second, I don't have to die, but I can't get a hold on anything able to support my weight and continue to fall. The last 10 feet is an unobstructed path straight to the ground. Every part of my body hurts. I'm sure I'm dead. It'll just be slow and painful. Darkness starts to creep in at the edges of my vision, and just before everything goes black, I hear a subtle hiss.
Chapter 2. Usza. They befoul the land with their presences and must be destroyed, Khazir shouts, full of fury. He's an excellent general, though the display isn't needed. I already agree with him. I don't like the way the orcs have harried our borders. While they haven't killed any Naga in their most recent attacks, it's only a matter of time before they do. Where Khazir and I disagree is on the strategy of how to eliminate them. Yes, I say, gliding around my desk towards him. They're pushing more into our territory every day and threatening our people. But if you attack from the east, you'll approach them from a disadvantage. It's quite literally an uphill battle. Then what would you suggest we do? He asks with an exasperated hiss. He and I have rarely seen eye to eye on strategy, but I find the ways we disagree have often been helpful in shaping my battle plans. While our discussions can sometimes appear rather antagonistic, I value his efforts in tearing my plans to pieces. He sees flaws and holes in my strategies I never considered. Every leader needs a Khajiit at their side. I just happen to be lucky to have the only one. We attack them from the north, I say. I do love getting him to pause like this as he tries to figure out my strategy and already pokes holes in it. But we need our troops in the east to defend the border, or they will sweep in and take prime grazing territory for our animals. Oh, I wasn't planning to leave the east completely unguarded. We position troops to the east as though we are preparing to attack, but we'll have sent an advance army across the river, I say, pointing to the map. He looks at the map and shakes his head. That spreads our numbers too thin. No thinner than if we send all our troops charging up that hill. Just because we don't fear them, nor fear death to protect our honor or our homeland, doesn't mean we need to throw troops away needlessly. Either plan is a risk, but I'll carry out whatever strategy you believe is best. And I can trust you to carry it out in exacting detail as always. That is one of my general's many admirable qualities. He and I might butt heads when strategizing, but once I choose a course of action, he is very good at following orders. You've yet to steer us wrong. It's why the Borderlands troops support you so loyally. I don't ask them to do anything I wouldn't do myself. I think the men appreciate someone of noble blood who has seen real war like they have, he says. My people are proud warriors, but not everyone has the same dedication to it. I've been a fighter all my life. I've always been ready to put my life on the line for my people. It's what I've been trained to do since I was a child. There hasn't been time for much else. Even my family and I are distant. I've spent more time training with the generals they sent me off to than with them. While I'm loyal to them, it's because it's my duty to be. I will defend my family, my people, and my homeland with everything I have. My duty is to my people, so I've never taken the time to find a mate. Though it's never felt like much of a sacrifice. Usza? Khazir raises an eyebrow at me. Yes, I say, snapping back to the present and noticing another Naga, one of the soldiers, has entered and is now looking concerned. Never mind. I think you need some sleep. I rub my eyes. The lack of sleep has been a sacrifice. Even the strongest can only battle against unconsciousness for so long. It's been days since I've slept properly. I'll sleep when I'm dead. What is it? The soldier bows his head and says, We found something while out on patrol, at the bottom of the cliffs. What is it? I'm not sure, that's the problem. I can't tell if the soldier's concern is about the thing he just found, or how I didn't even notice he came in because I'm so tired. Show me, I say, following him out the door. Soldiers' tents are scattered around the central building, and he leads me to one with the flap drawn open. There are perhaps 24 Naga gathered around trying to peer inside. Soldiers! I shout, and they all snap to attention. I'm sure you all have duties you should be attending to. If not, I can find you something to do that is more productive than standing around. The bow and slink away. The first soldier motions for me to enter the tent, and I see several more Naga gathered around a bed. Is your presence here required? I ask. They all turn to look at me before leaving the tent. When I see what is lying there, I understand the commotion. It's a human woman. Humans are a rarity in Nagaland. Very few have seen them. I've only seen a handful when other nobles have decided they wanted to keep one as a pet. I have to admit, they do look fascinating, and she's the most fascinating example I've seen. Humans share some similarities to Naga, but are also very different. Her arms are more delicate but the same basic shape. No scales, though, just tan-colored skin. But I've seen humans with different colors of skin. They may even have as much variation as we Nagas do for our scale color. No proud hood, but they have hair like dark elves and orcs. Hers is long and black, and it feels soft when I run my fingers through it. While I've seen humans, I've never had the chance to touch one or examine them up close. I pry an eye open and she stares blankly into space. Round irises, so different from the gold of mine with the vertical slit. But perhaps the most fascinating things are her legs. Hers are long and lean and flawless, noticeably lacking scales and a tail. I carefully reach out and touch them. Her skin is smooth and warm and soft, but I can feel the harder muscle underneath. She must be strong. She may be a human, but she's far more beautiful than the ones I've seen. The other humans were forgettable, never speaking or looking at me. I have the sudden urge to wake her as I realize I've never heard a human. I want to talk to her and hear what she sounds like. My blood thrums violently as I survey her, and it hits me all at once. I felt it the moment I laid eyes on her, but I'm only now beginning to understand this feeling she's awakened in me. Yes, there's curiosity, but I want her. I feel like she should be mine. Yes, I will keep her. I'm sure I can find other uses for her than just staring at her, though that alone is something I feel I could do for a long time. She really is beautiful. A treasure. Is that... I hear Kazir's voice behind me as he enters the tent. Yes, General. A human. He draws closer, but I hold my arm out, stopping his advance. She's mine. He doesn't know it yet, so I'll forgive the impertinence. I don't want curiosity to become a distraction. Let our people know that we've found a human. I'll be taking care of it. If she was found at the bottom of the cliffs, perhaps she has seen the orcs near there and might have useful information. Yes, sir. Talking to her seems like a reasonable place to start, but my mind is already at work thinking of what else I might do with her. There are so many possibilities for such a fascinating and alluring creature such as this.
Chapter 3. Gemma. I startle awake, and the sudden movement makes me wince. I feel everywhere that I hit a branch on the way to the ground. I'm stiff and sore, but I appear whole as I look over my body. And I've been given some form of treatment for my wounds. There are some bandages on my arm. I lift the edge to peek under them and see they're holding some sort of salve or something against a rough series of scrapes, but it appears to be healing. I'm guessing if I'm injured, I haven't moved on to some form of afterlife. Perhaps in some sort of torment maybe, but the wound doesn't hurt at all. Maybe whatever has been put on them has some sort of numbing quality. But this bed I'm lying in, that might be some form of heavenly reward. I've spent years sleeping on the streets, but even when I've been able to beg, borrow, or steal a bed, nothing has ever felt this good. The linens are smooth, maybe silk. But that's only a word I've heard. I've heard things described as smooth as silk, but I've never actually touched the material. So, it could be something else entirely. And the mattress is firm but pliant, and not a lumpy mess. I don't know what it is stuffed with, but there aren't uncomfortable bits of straw poking out, making me itch. I could lay here forever and just enjoy the sensation of this bed. Maybe this is my reward for a life well lived. But my insistent need to know is getting in the way of my ability to just enjoy laying here. There's the nagging sense that I could also still be in danger. Just because something feels good doesn't mean it is good. Dark elves are painfully beautiful creatures, and every single one of them is an evil, manipulative bastard that would skin you alive just because they felt like it. So, even though I'm more comfortable now than I have ever been, I need to get up and find out where I am. I finally sit up and take a good look around the room. The room is simple and sparse, but still elegant. There are large glass windows overlooking a balcony. Perhaps a peek outside will help me figure out where this place is. I slide to the edge of the bed, enjoying how the material feels against my skin. It's almost enough to make me want to discard my rags, just to feel what this is like against my bare flesh. But getting completely naked in a strange environment seems like a poor choice. When I try to stand up from the bed, a sharp pain in my left ankle makes me stumble back, landing on the soft mattress. Okay, if I fell from a cliff and the worst I have is a sprained ankle, I'll count myself lucky. It must have taken a miracle for me to survive. As I was falling, hitting all those branches didn't feel good, but it must have been enough to slow my fall. The temporary pain is worth not going splat at the bottom. Being a bit more careful this time, I use the wall so I don't put too much weight on my left foot. I make my way to the balcony, each step making it so I need the wall less and less. When I get to the edge of the balcony, I stumble back again. This time it has nothing to do with my ankle, but instead with the sudden dizziness I felt looking over another cliff. Before it felt like the world was tilting sideways, the trees had looked similar as well. The air doesn't taste any different here either. So, I couldn't have gone far. I hobble back into the room. There's one more door that must lead out into the rest of whatever building I'm in. I start to limp towards it. I've figured out I haven't gone far, but I'm obviously no longer in Orc territory, and the architecture here doesn't carry with it the opulence most dark elf buildings have. That leaves some options, but I can't help but feel a secret hope that this could be some kind of human settlement. There are stories of free humans living and thriving on Protheka, but it's always somewhere, and it's never certain how many. As I near the door, though, I get a cold sense of dread when I hear hissing and the sound of something large gliding against the stone floor. I look back to the balcony. There's no way I'd be able to climb out of it to see if there's anywhere else to go. Not with my ankle, all messed up. And I don't want to test my luck by hurling myself over a cliff edge again. I think I'm limited to one miracle per way to die. I ball my hands into fists, holding them at my side, ready to start swinging if anything hostile comes through that door. Had I woken up in chains or something that looked closer to a cage, I might have had my fist raised. But you wouldn't bandage up someone and set them up on a cushy bed just so you could feed them to your giant pet snake, right? When the door opens, I realise it's not a pet snake I was hearing, but some kind of snake man. Then my mind summons a word I'd started to think was just a myth. Naga. I'd heard of them in stories others had told in hushed tones about the snake people of Nagaland. A cold weight settles into the pit of my stomach. In all the stories I heard of the Naga, they were described as cold-blooded people whose cruelty rivaled that of the dark elves, even surpassed it, depending on the storyteller. More than once I'd heard that they feasted on human flesh. It was like taking the worst aspects of dark elves and orcs and pouring them into one serpentine container. But if that's the case, why heal me? Why put me here and not in a cage with the other humans they bred for food? Maybe they enjoy playing with their food a bit first. A chill runs down my spine, but I suppress the shiver. I set my jaw and keep my stare hardened. Just because I'm scared out of my wits doesn't mean I have to let him see my fear. At least I think it's a him. I don't know what would differentiate a Naga man or a Naga woman. I'm pretty sure it's a him. He just feels masculine. The Naga stares at me, and at first, I feel very uncomfortable. I've had men undress me with their eyes before, and some are capable of making me feel like I need a shower after. Whatever this guy is looking for feels like that but more intense, and I can't tell if it's better or worse. It doesn't feel like he's stripping away my clothes but my secrets. I want to turn away, to run and hide. But I'm locked in his gaze, staring right back into his golden eyes. And the longer we look at each other, even though it feels more invasive, I find myself minding it less and less. And then he speaks. I'm the Duke of this territory. You may call me Usza. His voice moves through me, igniting passions I didn't know I had. Is it really possible to get this turned on just by hearing someone talk? It's never happened to me before. Perhaps it's some strange ability his people have. Maybe that was what his gazing into my eyes was about, some kind of spell. Because this can't be happening. I can't feel weak in the knees over the half-snake man.
Chapter 4. Usza. The woman's eyes are round and her breath's short. She's a prey animal in distress, to be eaten or discarded at will. Any other Naga would throw her in the ocean to drown or feed her to the beasts, like one would discard any other vermin. Few would request to keep her as a pet to do even worse to her. I'm not sure why, then, I desire so strongly to nudge her cheek with mine. I don't only want to claim her, but to comfort her, and the idea of it alone should be as repulsive as cuddling a maycat, the spindly insect that builds its home out of dung and multiplies by the thousands. Nagaland is organized into strict castes, and the strong rule the weak, which is as it should be. Humans are the lowest of the low. They have no magic and no strength to make up for it. They are useless at fighting anyone except each other, and they cannot survive on their own. They don't understand how to survive on only themselves, like the proud Naga. We don't interact with any others, finding no need to leave our homes except to defend it. Unlike the Minotaurs, we do not engage in trade with others, treating them as our equals. That's because there are no equals to us, especially not humans. The fact they exist at all is some sort of joke. So why do I feel inclined to give her anything she could ever want or need, when she should be less than the stone beneath me? What are you called? Her face does a curious thing as she stares at me. I can smell her fear, but her face smooths to reveal none of it. I had thought a human would grovel at my feet, but she holds herself together with a brittle, patched-together pride. Her chin trembles, but she holds it as high as any queen. She does not answer. If she were anyone else, this is where my patience would end. And yet my fangs remain at bay, unwilling to harm her. There is something monstrously wrong with me. It is as though I've been bewitched, and all of my sense and judgment has been taken from me. Do you have magic? I ask. I've never heard of humans with the gift, but there must be some explanation for this strange compulsion to protect her. She looks at me with eyes so wide her pupils look like tiny dots. Magic? She shakes her head. Do you think I would be sitting here if I had magic? She's right, it's impossible. Still, perhaps she had an understanding with an elf or some other creature. Have you been charmed? Charmed. Her lips twitch at this. No, I can't say that I've had a charmed day in my entire life. Her voice is like music. I see horror spreads in my stomach. I've heard tales of this. I've seen this, haven't I? When a friend loses his head over a female. As soon as I saw her, it was as though I'd found a part of myself. It was as though my entire world had recentered around her. Is it even possible to have a human mate? I recoil at the thought. Nagas mate within our tribes. To think of mating with any outsider, much less a human, is impossible. There must be something else at work here. She might have been charmed without her knowledge and sent like some sort of sweet trap. I will keep her close until I discover what's happening to me. If there is any charm at work here, it will reveal itself in time. And your name? Names have power for those with magic, but she hands hers to me freely. Gemma. Gemma. I like how it tastes on my lips. My forked tongue flicks across my mouth and she startles back. I want to soothe her, to stroke her hair, but I keep my hands fisted at my sides instead. Why are you here? Orcs. Her teeth nibble on the nail of her pinky, and her knees fold against her chest. Isn't it always? That earns me a faint smile, and I chastise myself for the pleasure I take in it. She's a human. If I can't discard her, then I should at least treat her as the inferior creature she is. I clear my throat and force my voice to remain stern. I tire of this conversation. Why are you here, specifically? I don't even know where this is. She continues to bite her nails. It should disgust me. I can't stop staring at her lips. The Orcs kidnapped my friends and I from Lyandor. We tried to escape. We failed. You aren't captured by Orcs any longer. I wouldn't call that a failure. Her laugh holds no humor. Everyone I was in charge of died. I jumped off a cliff because I thought that was better than being eaten alive by angry Orcs. She looks at me as though I am more terrifying than any Orc could ever be, and I look away. Where are we? I've only heard of your kind in old stories. Cario. Right. She tucks her chin over her knee. She must have injured her left ankle because she rubs it with a wince. Cario. Our conversation dies down. I have no more in common with a human than I would the meat I eat, so I observe her instead, trying to puzzle out my strong reaction to her existence. She's beautiful, and not just for a human, although that might be my addled wits talking. Her hair is as dark as the night sky, and it serves to enhance the intensity of her blue eyes. She should look strange with such soft, tan skin and hair instead of scales, but she looks enticing instead. My fingertips itch to discover just how soft her skin might be beneath the rags she wears. A loud growl interrupts my wild thoughts. Her stomach growls again and her cheeks redden. I'm grateful for the interruption. Guards! A guard posted outside stands at attention. The prisoner will eat now. As you desire, sir. The guard keeps his head down, submissive, but hesitates. Ah, what exactly does the prisoner eat? What do humans eat? I could ask her, but it would diminish my standing to take requests from any prisoner, much less a human. I think of all I know about humans, which isn't much. I know they scavenge for food in the forests whenever they are found in the wild. Elves surely feed them, but my visits with elves and other creatures are thankfully rare. Meat. Cooked. The guard's shoulders freeze at the last order. Most Naga eat raw meat. Food touched by fire is a delicacy only allowed to royals such as myself. My own shoulders stiffen in turn and my tail slithers a warning. My orders are not to be questioned. And bring clothes. Her rags disgust me. I shut the door. You will have food soon. Thank you. Her fingers twist against the bed. You said I'm in Cario. Are we in Elvish territory then? Elvish. My tongue lashes the word out of my mouth like a bad taste. Never. This is Nagaland. It is not for the feet of any other creature to defile. She lifts her head and looks at me in the eyes. I force myself to keep her gaze. Does that mean you'll let me go? Let you go? You invaded my land. I didn't even know this place existed until now. Invaded. I fell down a cliff. Her flash of temper should enrage me. Instead, I find myself enraptured by her passionate glare. My heartbeat kicks up a notch, and I must consciously slow my breathing. Onto my land. The thought of her leaving makes something claw desperately at my throat. You will not leave it. It is better that she knows her place now, but I still don't like how her eyes dim at my announcement. Even when the food arrives, she pokes at it with her finger and then stares at the wall. Would you rather be eaten by orcs, then? My voice is sharp. It is bad enough this woman has beguiled my senses somehow. I will not suffer her ungratefulness. Or rot at the bottom of a cliff. You are here, and you are alive, and you will eat.
Chapter 5. Gemma. What is this? As I stare at the steaming plate of slightly bloody meat, it occurs to me that I have no idea what the Naga consider food. I would ask, but the agitated twitch of the Duke's tail has me concerned that I've already tested his patience enough. I could lie and say I'm not hungry, but my stomach betrays me, loud and desperate for food. It's been so long without food that dots begin to appear in my vision, and I blink them away. I'm no stranger to hunger, but my imprisonment left me weaker than usual. Is it unsatisfactory? His voice, polished and refined, is like a balm to my ears. That's another problem, and one I can't deal with on an empty stomach. It doesn't hide the slight irritation curling beneath his hissed words. No. I stare at the plate of meat and bury a sigh. I've scavenged for food in restaurant dumpsters back on Leondor before. This can't be any worse, and more importantly, I can't risk upsetting the only Naga I've spoken with in this place. I can't afford to make any enemies, not if I mean to escape. I know nothing about Naga or this city, but I'll learn, and I'll survive like always. First, I need to eat. There are no utensils, so I pick up the bone that looks disturbingly like a femur and take a bite. My teeth clank uselessly on the surface. I use the tips of my incisors to chip away at a small, bloody chunk, and I force it down. I've never had the chance to become a picky eater, but this is physically inedible. Grease dribbles down my chin and I wipe it away with my arm. My cheeks flush. I know that elves consider humans to be worse than vermin, and his refined manners must find mine lacking as well. Bitterly, I think that it's easy to consider themselves civilized when they've never been desperate, starving or imprisoned. He doesn't chastise my lack of manners or scoff at them like a dark elf might. He simply hands me a fresh cloth, cleaner than any I've ever seen, so clean that I almost feel ashamed to use it against my grime-covered face. "The centre is the most tender," he says. "Oh." I poke at the hardened crust of the meat. Maybe if I gnaw at it for another hour or so, I might reach the centre. I open my mouth, prepared to put the work in, but his clawed hand reaches for me instead. The smooth top of his claw brushes against the bottom of my jaw, and my heart thuds heavy in my chest. He quickly brings his hand down to the plate and slices through outside of the meat, exposing it. Blood pours from the meat and floods the plate. If this is cooked, then raw must mean their meal is still talking. I push that line of thought aside and bite the bloody centre. I choke down a few more bites with less damage to my jaw. I glance up at him to see if he's appeased, but it's difficult to tell anything about his expression. He looks intense. We make an uncomfortable amount of eye contact as I attempt another bite. Why is he so determined to feed me? Are Naga like the Orcs? Is he trying to fatten me up and make me into some sort of food reserve? Am I being farmed? Is this human? I try to hide a gag at the thought, but he catches me. What now? He frowns at the plate. Humans eat meat, yes? This is from our herd of tassa, raised for our sustenance. Only royalty eat it as you do, kissed by fire. My shoulders slump in relief, but he steps forward and I freeze. I must have upset him. If this is a dish served to royalty, and I have made a show about barely choking it down, then he must be furious. It really is delicious, truly. It's too good for me. The grovelling comes second nature to me, an inauthentic survival response ingrained in me after years of surviving on the bottom of a magical caste system. To look at a dark elf the wrong way back home could be a death sentence, and to look at an orc at all was never a good sign of things to come for humans. I bring shame to you by eating it at all. You should bring me a more humble dish instead. Those are not your words. He dismisses my apology without a second thought. Grovelling is beneath you. I'm a human, I remind him, a bitter note in my voice not well concealed. There isn't much beneath me, remember? Another creature might backhand me for my insolence, but he seems to prefer it. A puff of air escapes his mouth in a hiss, almost as if he's amused. His forked tongue flicks across his stern lips. He's so close that I can feel the rush of his breath against my cheek and see the lights dance across his green-scaled skin, revealing all sorts of colours hidden when he stands far away. He's beautiful in a dangerous sort of way, like the seductive impulse to jump whenever I stand next to a steep cliff's edge. Is he going to eat me or kiss me? I survived one fall. When he's this close to me, with his breath against my neck, I think that I might like to try another. Do I want him to? I'm almost hypnotised by his gold eyes up close. He stares at me like he's seeing my thoughts, like he knows how much I fear and want him in equal measure. I force myself to look away and squeeze my eyes shut. Your teeth are laughably inefficient, he complains. I cannot understand how your kind has ever survived in this world. Soft, exposed bellies, weak, decay-prone teeth, no strength, no magic. How have you managed to survive this long? I've been told I'm a bit stubborn. His mouth makes that strange, amused sound once more, and I blink my eyes open in surprise. He isn't preparing to eat me, or punish me, or kiss me at all. He's using his claws to slice the meat into small, bite-sized pieces. It takes a while, but he's patient with the process, cutting and slicing while he speaks in a calm, gentle tone. You've gone too long without nutrition. I understand that this food might not be cooked or prepared to your tastes, but you must try to eat it. Our kitchens can prepare something more suitable, if you'll tell us what your kind can eat. He pushes the plate closer to me. We have never had a human here before. I don't mean to be of any trouble. More grovelling. This seems to upset him more than my refusing to eat. Your inadequate biology is not your fault. Thanks. No orc has ever cared about the dietary requests of their food-farmed humans, and if the Naga have a herd of domesticated animals, then they probably aren't in need of humans to fatten up. I take a bite, and then another. I really am starving, and now that the food is easier to force down, I clear the entire plate. Usza pulls back from my space and summons the guards to collect the used plate. He looks satisfied with himself as I lean back in the bed, sated and warm. It's been so long since I've had a full stomach that I nearly fall asleep. I can't believe I feel safe enough to allow myself to feel drowsy, but sure enough, my blinks grow heavy and slow. I don't know why I'm here, but I feel like I can trust him not to hurt me at the moment. It's almost like he's caring for me, but that doesn't make any sense. The Duke made it abundantly clear that I am being held captive, and I can still hear the guards, their tails giving them away as they drag along the stone outside my door. What's happening?
In a world of elves, demons, and liches.
What would you choose?
Power?
Or passion?
Would you stab the monster in the back?
Or take him to bed?
The immersive fantasy audiobook bundle has it all.
Go to worldsofprotheka.com to get access.
Use code YouTube30 to get an additional 30% off.
Protheka's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive.
Chapter 6. Usza. I join my soldiers as we patrol the border. The orcs are unusually quiet. Lately they've been testing the strength of our borders, harassing patrols, even if just verbally. But today, nothing. This has to be a tactic or something. They can't have suddenly decided to give up and go home. They're waiting for their moment, looking for a weakness. But we will show them none. We just need to hold the line a little longer until we can free up some troops from some other regions, and then we can make a final push to take back the land the orcs had seized. I was hoping for a fight today, something to take my mind off that human girl. I just need to clear my head a bit, even if just for a few minutes, so I can assess the situation objectively. Obviously, there's something special about her. But what is it? Did I give her enough to eat? I've never had to deal with humans, so I'm only guessing at how much she might need for food. And why did I say that I'd prepare her foods more suitable for humans? I asked her what she wanted, and she gave me a long list of things she likes. Why am I... Usza, Kazir says. Yes? You've got that look in your eye. I straighten up and try my best to pretend I remember any of the last 5 minutes of this patrol. The look you get when you're distracted. Your body's here, but your mind is somewhere else. Please tell me it is in prayer to Minir. I could use a blessing from the god of the mind and spirit, but alas, I'm not as religious as my parents pretend to be. Just trying to figure out where we can move some troops around without weakening our other borders. I see. May I suggest, though, that for the moment you keep your attention on this one? Our shift is almost over, and then we can return to your office and discuss how we can accomplish that. He's being very diplomatic. I'm distracted. And I'm not spending nearly enough time thinking about anything to do with the sovereignty and security of my people. Do we have any vegetables growing in this area? I ask. What? I hadn't intended to say that out loud. I'm just trying to figure out what the orcs want from this land. It's of no use to them. Is there something growing here that they want? Kazir looks skeptical for a moment. I've never been one for lying. I always thought it was because I'm honorable. But perhaps it's because I'm a terrible liar. But his expression softens. I don't know. Though what does it matter why they want it unless you're planning to offer them some form of trade? Trade? With orcs? Are you mad? Please, General, if I ever suggest we trade with those savages, I tell you that it's time to run me through with your blade because I've obviously been bewitched, and I'm under the influence of a spell or something. I laugh, though it does come out a little forced. I need to figure out how to recover. I meant more than if we know what they're coming into the territory for, then we can set up an ambush or something. I think you give the Orcs too much credit. I think they want the land because they want what they don't have. They don't farm or raise animals. They have no culture. They're brutes, nothing more. Perhaps you're right. We lapse into silence. Try as I might, I can't seem to keep my mind engaged. Either I've gotten better at hiding it in the last 5 minutes, or my general and brother-in-arms has given up on trying to make me focus. The question of what the Orcs want might be worth pursuing for strategic value, but I can't even seem to focus on that distraction. It's about Gemma. I did say I'd get her more human food. I'm not sure why I promised such a thing. And though I didn't swear it like an oath, I'm a man of my word. What kinds of human foods are there? I know bread. That's been a thing I've tried when I was younger and thought I could understand the enemy better by thinking like they do. Bread was terrible, unpalatable stuff. She even asked for fruits. Where would I even find any of this stuff I promised her? So, should we see where we can redeploy some troops? He asks as we turn back towards home. What? Oh, I think I may finally have to try that sleep thing you've been suggesting. I hear it all the rage. Very well, sir. Kazir doesn't look convinced, but is too polite to call me on it. Perhaps that's for the best. When I get to my chambers, Ireko is waiting for me. While Kazir is my right hand in all military matters, Ireko is who handles all of my domestic affairs. He schedules meetings regarding family businesses, manages household staff, and is usually the one bugging me about going to sleep instead of staring at battle maps all night. Is everything okay, sir? He asks. What? Yes, why do you ask? You look pensive. Just a little lost in thought. Very well. He continues to eye me like he doesn't believe me. Can I get you anything? No, thank you. I think I'll just turn in for the evening. Are you sure nothing's troubling you? He's starting to get on my nerves. Why do you keep asking that? I snap. Sorry, sir. At first it was your pensive expression. But then, well, you made it seem like you were going to relax this evening instead of staying up until the sunrise trying to win our next war. Perhaps I'm finally taking your advice and getting a good night's rest. While I wish that were true, sir, I doubt it. Are you calling me a liar? I ask. He may have been my assistant for years, but that doesn't mean I'm going to allow him to get that familiar with me. Though my anger lessens somewhat when I realize that I'm lying to him. I wasn't planning on going over battle maps. I was planning on obsessing about what to feed Gemma until it was time to bring her a meal again. Then I was going to stay up until sunrise trying to win our next war. Before he has a chance to reply, I say, I need to figure out how to feed a human. Very well, sir. Unfortunately, humans are very weak, and so can't survive on just meat and bone, unlike the Naga. Am I to assume you plan to keep the woman your soldiers found as a pet? I roll that idea around in my head for a moment. There are other nobles who kept humans as pets. Is that what I want from her? A loyal companion? I've never had a pet before, so I'm not exactly sure how one cares for a pet. But from what I've seen of the other nobles, it's the closest word to what I want, even though the title still feels very wrong. Perhaps I can keep her around for a little while, and maybe, once her novelty is worn off, I can figure out what I actually want to do with her. And it also buys me time. If I gave any other reason for having her around, people might get suspicious. Yes, a pet exactly. I'll keep her as a pet. Though, sir, I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't ask if you were sure. It's just that having a human pet has been the purview of the more decadent nobles, which is something you've never been, not to mention the cost of caring and feeding. Oh, don't worry so much about me, Ireko, I say. I'm sure I'll get bored with her soon enough, and then do whatever it is people do with their pets when they're done with them. But for now, I'll need whatever it is that you need to keep a human as a pet. And I've changed my mind. I want to see what she eats this evening, so please have it arranged that we share dinner.
Chapter 7. Gemma. When he leaves me alone in the room again, I pace, trying to think. He seems cordial so far, but I still don't know what his plan for me is. I know that I don't want to stay here, caged like this. I'm basically powerless against him if I'm stuck in this room. I didn't come this far to go down as a prisoner again. I try the door, but it doesn't budge. Locked tight. I'm not about to do anything dramatic, like try to knock the door down or jump for the cliff. I don't know the layout of this place first. Secondly, thanks to my ankle, I'm not exactly in prime shape for a daring getaway. Ultimately, it's just a risk that I'm not willing to take. I don't know that I can trust him, but he hasn't done anything to harm me yet. If I got caught escaping, his attitude toward me may be a little less favourable in the future. At least for now, I figure the best thing is to just hang tight. Not to make any rash decisions until I have more to go on. He said he'd be back later. Maybe then I'll at least be able to figure out why he brought me here and what he wants with me. I limp back to the bed, my ankle still a bit sore. Sitting down, I study the room again. There's really nothing here to entertain me or pass the time. I lay down on the bed, resting for a moment while I thought. I'm not used to having idle time like this. There is always something that needs to be done if you want to survive. Always a threat to look out for. Of course, he might still be a threat. I chide myself gently to not let my guard down just because he gave me a meal. But if I was in danger, here, it at least felt less immediate than it had with the Orcs. If he wanted me dead, he could have just left me at the bottom of the cliff. My eyes start to feel heavy, and I blink slowly a few times. Maybe I'll just take a quick nap, I think. A short one. It will get rid of some of the boredom, I convince myself. Besides, if I'm being honest, a good sleep doesn't come often for someone like me. Who knows when I may have the chance again? And the bed really is so soft and comfortable. I end up dozing, drifting in and out of sleep for most of the day. The opportunity to recharge myself feels pretty amazing after everything I've been through. I'm awake but still lazing in bed when Usza returns. It's late in the evening by now, or at least I assume so by the dusky sky that's visible through the window. There are several others with him, who glide in across the floor carrying loaded trays in their human-like hands. I scramble hurriedly off the bed, but only peer from a safe distance. The trays, I realise belatedly, have food. I recognise them as foods that the dark elves eat. I'm not sure what I had been expecting, though I know it was something more sinister than just a meal. I recall our last conversation and how he had questioned me regarding food. I had listed all sorts of things, anything I could think of, really. Not only did he take my words at face value, but he had gone out of his way to provide them. That very night. My forehead creases warily as I watch them set the food out for a meal. Why would he put all this effort into his captive? What is his goal for me, anyway? He turns to face me, waving his helpers away. They slink out the door, and we are alone. "If it pleases you," he begins, "may I dine with you this evening?" My jaw drops slightly in surprise, but I quickly gather my composure. All of this food was remarkable enough, but he wants to keep me company too. This is highly unorthodox captor behaviour, I think to myself. It doesn't help me in the least as I try to figure out what his game plan is. Sure, yes, that would be fine, I agree. I'm starving and could demolish this banquet without even trying. But I do my best to hold back and eat sensibly. It bodes incredibly well for me that this goes well, and I don't want him thinking that humans are disgusting or reprehensible. He eats as well, and I try to match his pace. But it's made harder by the way he keeps stopping to care for me. I don't want to eat all the food, but he seems to be pushing me to do so. He spends more time serving me food and refilling my drink than eating his own. He even helps by using his claws to slice some of the more difficult fruits into manageable pieces. I pick up one of the fruits that he just cut. The shell is hard, but the edible inside is soft and juicy. I take a tentative bite and the juice runs down my chin to my neck. Reflexively, I wipe it away with my hand. Then I blush, an act that feels strangely unnatural. It's probably been 20 years since I've done so. I'm not exactly what you might consider a classy person, but considering I'm dining with some form of royalty, I know that I should at least make my best effort to pretend. Luckily, he just smiles softly. "Tip your head back," he suggests. I do as he indicates and the juice runs down my throat. It's interesting, quite sweet and very pleasant when I swallow it. "Now take a bite," he encourages. I keep my head tilted, scraping the flesh of the fruit from the rind with my teeth. It has a tangy taste and a soft, warm texture that's incredible. I've never had something this wonderful before. I'm genuinely appreciative, both that he shared it with me and that he patiently taught me the right way to enjoy it. "Thank you," I reply sincerely, feeling myself warming up to him against my will. "It's delicious." He looks pleased at my response, watching me with those golden eyes. Then he clears his throat. "You've explained how you ended up here. But what about before the Orcs? What kind of life did you have then?" I shrugged. "Not much of one." He murmurs, but says nothing more. I can sense my answer doesn't satisfy him. I normally wouldn't care, considering it my own personal business. But there's something different about him. Something about the way he's been so willing to care and provide for me, and been, dare I say, kind. "My parents died when I was little," I explain. "I've been on my own ever since." "Who took their place?" he asks. "No one," I reply, shaking my head. "I learned to hunt, and just did what I needed to do. That's really all I'm good at, surviving." "You were all alone?" he clarifies. "No, not alone," I admit. "There's more like me, others who have had it tough. We stick together, take care of each other. It's sort of the unspoken rule, or at least my rule. No one left behind." He hums again, but this time he looks thoughtful. "What about you?" I ask. Then I gasp, my hand darting up to cover my careless mouth. "I'm sorry," I exclaim hastily. "Please forgive my rudeness." I clamp my lips together, looking down at my plate instead, and fold my hands meekly in my lap.
Chapter 8. Usza. Oh, don't worry so much. I try my best to laugh even though I feel like it comes out somewhat strangled. It's fine to want to get to know your... I'm suddenly unsure of what I'm supposed to be to her. What do you call a person a pet belongs to? Your owner? No, that doesn't feel right. From the look on her face, I can tell that word isn't sitting right with her. Your master. That seems worse. Just feel free to ask what you like, and I'll warn you if you're getting a little bit ahead of yourself. Okay? Gemma looks skeptical, but at least a little bit more relaxed. Okay, master. I hate the way it sounds on her tongue. No, hate isn't the right word. It makes me uncomfortable, but it will have to do until I figure something better out. Perhaps Eureka was right. Human pets are for the decadent. But what else could she be? I find her fascinating. I must just be confusing that with sexual attraction. I need to give it time, and I'm sure these feelings will just sort themselves out. How about, sir? I suggest. It's how most of my soldiers address me. Okay, sir. It seems like that's a better fit for the both of us. So, Gemma, what would you like to know? You said you had soldiers? How many? Directly and officially under my command, I have about 1,000, but those are the ones that have sworn fealty to my household, the ones who are mine no matter what. But the king has put me in charge of protecting our western border, hence why you fell into my territory. Do you like commanding troops? I'm good at it, and I take pride in my work. It's my duty, and I'm honored to be of service to my race. The way her brow wrinkles tells me she's dissatisfied with my answer. Is something wrong? Oh no, it's just... I still don't know if you like commanding troops. Do you enjoy your job? I'm a fighter. I've been one all my life. Trained since birth for this. It's not something I think about as a thing I like or dislike. It is what it is. There's appreciation in her stare, like she wants to say something else but doesn't. I'm not sure how to proceed. What is a pet owner's responsibility to their pet? Do I explain myself to her? I did say she could ask questions. I need to honor that, even to a pet. If I don't, then she won't believe other things that I say, and I need her to understand that when I say I'm going to do something, I intend to do it. You still don't seem like you're satisfied with my answer. I guess I just don't know what makes you happy. Well, I'm content with my job, with my duties. Contentment is sufficient. Is there anything you do like? I enjoy a challenge. I suppose you could say that my duties do, on occasion, present new and interesting challenges. She looks different now. For a moment I can't place my finger on what her facial expression means. Then it dawns on me. Are you content with that answer? The corners of her mouth turn up slightly. Yes, sir. I'm content with that answer. As we talk and eat, I try my best to mimic her smaller bites of food and chewing. It's a strange act. My teeth aren't exactly made for it. She seems delicate, so I'm trying my best to make her comfortable, or at least to not make her uncomfortable, aiming for content like always. But even as strange a feeling as the act of chewing is, my effort appears to be paying off. When she's eating now, she seems far less self-conscious about looking like she's enjoying the act of eating food. There is something I do like, I say. And what's that? Seeing you smile. Her tanned skin takes on a ruddy hue. Is something wrong? I ask. I don't understand what the color change of your face means. Then her skin takes on almost rosy undertones. I'm sorry, I just wasn't expecting that. I laugh. It's one of the essential rules of combat. Never let them see you coming. She finishes chewing the bite of food in her mouth. I think it's a piece of fruit, some kind of melon. I didn't find the taste particularly enjoyable, but she seems to like it. I'll need to remember what it looks like for later so I can request it again. When she is done, she smiles for me, and I feel much lighter than I did a moment ago. So, like that? She asks. Is that something you can do on command? I can smile, yes, but I always thought that forced smiles looked different. She turns back to eating, and I try to mimic her. As much as most of her food is uninteresting to me, I find a few pleasurable bits. And did you grow up here? She asks. Not in this house, no. My parents' house is closer to the capital, but they, because of their position in the royal family, needed to put me somewhere, and so I was given a little scrap of land on the border. This house? She asked. Well, no. This house is what was built after I expanded our territory. By leading soldiers. The question seems much more tentative than some of the others. Yes, I'm not a negotiator. I'm a warrior. And it's not like we're stealing the land from anyone. This should all belong to the Naga. We are the rightful rulers of the land. I'd love to learn more about your history. The history of the Naga. Well, perhaps next time I can try and bring you some books from the library. Something to keep you entertained when I'm taking care of my duties. The smile that had crept onto her face dies. Is something wrong? Oh no, it's nothing, just... I can't read. You can't read, Naga? I can't read anything, she says, putting the last bit of melon back on her plate and staring at her hands in her lap. Well, we can see about changing that. Perhaps. I need to stop promising her things, though it's difficult when I see the way she lights up. So, you teach me. I know how to read, but knowing something and teaching it are different. We'll just have to wait and see. It's a sweet victory to see her pick up her food and eat again. Her questions start to die down after a while, as does the pace with which she eats. Are you full? I ask. Yes, thank you. For the first time in a long time, I'm content, she says with a grin. Well, I'll have some servants come by and gather the dishes. I should retire for the evening. As I rise to stand, so does she. She walks a few paces behind me as I move toward the door. Then I turn and just stare at her, while much of her apprehension around me has dissipated. Doesn't appear to be gone entirely, but it's something we can work on, I suppose. Tomorrow I'm going to take you out somewhere. Would you like that? Her beaming smile is all the answer I need, but she does say, "Thank you very much, sir. I would love that." I don't know what to do next. I lean against the door frame and watch her, trying to read her body language. She slowly brings her hand to her lips and absent-mindedly chews on a fingernail. She sees me looking and snaps her hand back down to her side. She seems to bite her nails a lot when she's nervous. Is it actually soothing in some way? I can't imagine how well it would work out with my claws and teeth, but perhaps I'll give it a shot sometime. But then I realize I'm still in the doorway, looking at her, probably making her nervous and then causing her more anxiety because she's trying not to bite her nails. "Is there something I can do for you before you go?" she asks.
Chapter 9. Gemma. He doesn't answer right away, and it feels like he never will because time seems to slow when he has me locked in his gaze. His eyes are intense and mesmerizing, but I get more and more nervous every time he looks at me like this. I worry he's going to see something in me that means I'm unworthy of his attention. Why do I want his attention? It could be the fact that, for the first time in my life, someone is taking care of me. He made sure that my injuries were treated, asked how I was doing. He gave me clothes and food, all the things I was used to doing for others. I'd often felt exhausted after a long day of taking care of everyone around me. Still, I'd always just assumed I was exhausted because life was hard. But looking back, I realise I was constantly pulling from a dry well. Yes, life was hard, but it was made harder by the fact that there was no one to care for me at the end of the day. I feel a slight pang of longing at the memories of my friends, the little family of human cast-offs. So many of them are dead now, but those like Sasha, Mary and Joshua might still be out there, surviving on. I should want to go find them, shouldn't I? But I actually like the situation I'm in. That thought causes my breath to catch in my throat. Time flows again when he blinks. I'll have someone come see you early in the morning, our healer, just to check on your foot again. If I'm going to take you out, I don't want it to make your injury worse. Can I ask a question? His lips form a half smile that I'm starting to recognise as very dangerous, because I flush each time I see it. And he hasn't even said or done anything to warrant it. It's the mere implication of the mischief he could get up to that's enough to make my heart beat a little faster. Please let this be some Naga ability that I never heard about. You may. Where would we be going tomorrow that I might be doing all this walking around? I want to give you a tour of my territory, show you around. I'm sure you'd like to see something more than just these four walls, he says. I realise I've started biting my nails again and snap my hand away from my mouth. How do I keep doing that without ever realising it until it's too late? To be fair to these walls, they're clean, sturdy and safe, and one of them is almost all glass with a great view. But I would like to see more of this place. So yes, please, thank you. Well, I guess. His word trails off into a gentle hiss as he brings his hand in front of him and closes half the distance between us. His eyes, his amazing and frustratingly unreadable eyes, look at me, and it's again like time has stopped. He'd just have to move that last half of the space between me and the door, and his hand would brush my cheek. When I first saw him, in the first second he entered the room, the thought of a Naga touching me would have made my skin crawl. Now it tingles with anticipation. I want to feel his hand on me. I try to tell myself that this is all just curiosity. Now that I've gotten over the fear, at least mostly, I want to know more, to explore. But he's not moving. I shift my weight, ready to step forward. Maybe he's waiting for me to close the distance between us. But before I can begin to take a step, he turns around and leaves without a word. I feel this stab of regret that I didn't move sooner. I don't know what would have happened if I did. So many things are possible, but I have to live with not knowing. I turn and walk back to my bed as the soldiers close and lock the door behind me. The sound of the lock clicking should make this feel like a prison, shouldn't it? But there's so much that separates this room from the cage I was in with the Orcs. It might just be the fever dream of a lonely woman, but I can at least pretend the lock is meant to keep things out rather than to keep me in. As I skip the last step and land on the bed, feeling my heart racing as I think back to him almost touching me. Am I crazy for preferring this to my life before? What has he done to me? Or is it really as simple as what he's done for me? The thought that stole my breath comes back. I like the situation I'm in. Is it selfish to prefer this gilded cage to the harsh life I had on the streets, where I'd taken on the role of protector, mother, and confidant for so many people for so many years? I had thought perhaps for a second after waking up here that this might be my divine reward for leading a good life. I never did it expecting a reward. I did it because I thought it was the right thing to do. I still think it's the right thing to do, but maybe it's someone else's turn. For a long time, I thought I was the only one who could do all that. And even if it were true, I'm not the only one who could do any of it. It might be more challenging for people for a while to live a life where they can't run to Gemma with their problems, but they'll adjust. Then I feel bitter bile rising at the back of my throat when I think of how many people died even when I was there. I can't save everyone. It certainly feels like I couldn't save most of them. But that doesn't matter now. I don't have to choose between doing what's easy and doing what's right because I don't have a choice anymore. My jailer may just be my saviour, and even though I never did any of it expecting a reward, I'm struggling to see a reason why I should reject the one I have. I can feel safe here. I'm not constantly struggling for food to feed a couple dozen people and going hungry for days in a row so that one of the young ones can eat. And if my blessing in disguise wants something in return, who am I to say no to him? If I'd taken those last steps and we touched, would he want something more from me? More than just being his pet? The thought ignites a fire in me, and I'm almost too ashamed of it to let it keep burning. Almost. The man is a monster. He's the thing I've heard dark elves whisper of. Control of your magic is the only thing that will keep you alive on Kainvu, I once heard a commander tell a sailor as they readied to leave for a trip. The Naga are relentless and strong. How bad am I to want this Naga to take me if dark elves are wary of them? Do I feel that I owe him for all he's done? Is there some spell on me? It must be something because any reasonable human would rather jump to their death than stay here with him. Yet I want him to come back. I need to stop thinking about him. I should try to sleep, but when I close my eyes, all I see is him staring at me, making me melt. Lying in bed, I slowly pull my dress up and shudder as the luxurious fabric slides along my skin. I tell myself that I'm just checking if he's had an effect on me, knowing full well I'm lying that it will stop there. When I drag my finger up and down my slit, it comes away very wet. Am I really this turned on by a Naga? What the hell is wrong with me? But the bigger question is, do I even want to be right anymore? Chapter 10. Gemma. In the morning, the healer comes and looks at my ankle. This must be the one that first examined me because the grey-scaled Naga says, "I'm glad to see the arm has healed nicely. Very fine work if I do say so myself." He holds out a hand and says, "Your ankle." Besides Usza, the doctor has been the only other Naga I spoke to. And while the doctor's voice is very pleasant and soothing, I fail to have the visceral response to his voice that I have to Usza's. I put my foot in his hand, and he moves it slowly, asking me if it hurts with this pressure or that angle. It feels a little bit like torture to have him poking and prodding at me like that, but in the end, He releases my foot and reaches into a bag. "Take this," he says, handing me a poultice. "Keep it on your ankle all morning. It should reduce the swelling and pain. If you do that and stay off of it, you'll be fine to walk in the afternoon. But be sure to use it again for the next few days." "Thank you." "You're welcome." I'm unsure if I can trust the medicine from a healer who has been surveying my smooth legs, like they are foreign to him, despite the fact that he has a pair just like them, only partially covered in scales. He treats my body as if it is so different from his, and I suppose it is. Overall, I like to ignore the differences between us, and I almost laugh as I realise that I consider a tail and snake hood a minute detail. But I want to go on the tour with Usza, so I obediently sit in bed with the poultice on my ankle, trying to contain my excitement for the tour. I don't know if the doctor told Usza he had to wait for the afternoon, or if he was already planning on the afternoon, but that's when he shows up. And I'm so glad I followed the healer's instructions, because my ankle only feels a little sore now, and I can ignore it as I walk on it. Usza takes me around his territory and shows me the city. The first thing I notice is how incredibly clean everything is. I suppose if you are dragging your tail along the street, it encourages you to keep everything immaculate. But it's more than that. While the dark elves can claim more impressive structures, they also have the low towns where the caste divides are stark and obvious. There still exists a caste system here, but the signs of it are more subtle. Plus, they don't treat anyone like trash, and it ends up reflected in the cleanliness of the city. I watch the way the Naga interact with each other, and it always seems to be respectful, and everyone we meet is even more respectful when talking with Usza. He holds an easy sway over almost every one of the Naga we meet. And every single person I see is a Naga. I've still seen humans even in the wealthiest parts of a dark elf city. They may be slightly better dressed servants than the humans you find in low towns, but they're still the same race. Not in Cario, though. I almost wish there were more humans here. Even if they were slaves or pets or whatever, as much as I enjoy my tour of the city, I also feel like I'm the one on display. Nearly every Naga we pass stops and stares at me, but I suppose it's only fair. I'm looking at all of them with equal, if not more, curiosity than they look at me with. But I wish I was better at reading Nagas' facial expressions. I don't really have a way of knowing what they see when they stare at me. Am I just a curiosity to them, or do they see me as something threatening their way of life that they hold so dear? I'm a little shocked and self-conscious when I see some of the Naga women. They have such stunningly gorgeous features, and nearly every one of them stares at Usza with lust burning in their eyes. They want him, which has me wondering if the feelings and untoward thoughts I've had about Usza are a Naga thing, or is it just an Usza thing? And if it's just an Usza thing, does that mean it's not some unique ability, and the force of his charisma is enough to overcome any reservations I might have about whatever we may or may not end up doing? It's become impossible to deny the purely physical effects he has on me, or the way my mind begins to wonder how many of the stories about Naga are true. But I also feel a spike of jealousy each time one of these Naga women look at him. I don't know if it's a good sign or a bad sign that they don't appear to approach him. Does that mean they don't think they're worthy? Is it a custom they're observing? Or does everyone else but me know that he's already taken, and the dirty things I thought about him doing to me last night are even more of an impossibility? He takes me out to the fields where they raise their various livestock for slaughter. The Naga raising the meat may be of a lower caste, but it never feels strict in the way they interact with Usza. Or perhaps it is strict, but compared to the dark elf caste system, everything else seems relaxed. I stand by and watch as Usza hears the complaints of his people. He says he's a warrior, but I see he also is a bit of a diplomat and confidant. I don't know how the other Naga leaders operate, but I'm curious if Usza stands out in any way, or is this just what it means to be a Naga? No one says a word about me or to me the whole time, though I'm uncertain if that is out of politeness or callous disregard. After a tour of the surrounding countryside, we head into the centre of the city, to a large round building of intricately carved white marble depicting epic battles. "What is this place?" I ask. "This is the arena where we settle our disputes through trial by combat. It's also where men prove themselves worthy of taking a mate." "What?" "Only the strong get to have mates. If you desire a woman, you have to emerge victorious from combat with men from her clan. Though it's different if it's a true mate." True mate? Some people don't need to prove it through combat because their connection is undeniable to both of them. Though the men of her clan may still put forth a challenge, a man doesn't have to accept, but few refuse it. The discussion of mates again makes me very aware of how the women look at Usza and how some of them look at me. There is a competition going on, and I don't even feel like I'm in the running compared to many of these women. Then there's a great horn blast. "Oh, a trial is about to start. Quickly, come with me," he says, before taking my hand in his, and I swear the feeling of it causes my whole body to tingle. And I'm only just aware enough to start moving with him as he slithers on. Otherwise, he'd have dragged me right off my feet. We move through the crowd, and I can again feel all their eyes on me. Some seem to be acutely focused on where our hands meet. To be fair, my eyes keep coming back to our interlocked fingers. For a supposedly cold-blooded creature, Usza feels incredibly warm.
Chapter 11. Usza. I lead her to my place in the arena, and it pleases me to notice how trustingly she comes along. Even without understanding the crowd or why we're here, she simply follows me without objection. I like that, though I'm not sure why. It feels different than the loyalty my soldiers give me, and inspires an unfamiliar sensation inside of me. When we arrive at my destination, she looks around. I can tell that she's trying to understand why everyone is gathering, and I clarify to save her the effort. "A fight is about to begin," I explain. I gesture to a prominent terrace that overlooks the arena. There, a female Naga watches, sitting on a throne-like chair. "For her," I continue, "two men take the stage, waiting at opposite ends. Whoever wins is one step closer to making her his mate." I pause, then add, "He'll still be expected, of course, to provide for her. Mating rights can be revoked if he doesn't prove himself strong against his enemies, or an inadequate protector, for example. Women still have a say in what occurs and can voice their displeasure." I'm not sure why it matters to me that she believes the Naga males respect the females. She's female, but a human, and our mating rituals are no concern of hers. I tell myself it's simply appropriate to make sure our culture is reflected truthfully. "What about the one who doesn't win?" she asks. "He won't get a mate unless he finds his true mate. Most women wouldn't want him anyway. Naga women love men who can fight and protect them. Hunting and fighting are viewed very favorably among the women. But he can still take a..." She paused, then carefully repeated my own phrase back to me. "True mate?" "Yes," I replied, watching the fight begin. "That's quite rare, though. Most men, if they waited for their true mate, would never mate at all. True mates have a unique bond that can't be broken, though, and we respect that without interference." She stops talking for the time being, as the fight grows more intense. It's a close match, which makes it exciting to watch. I can feel my blood begin to heat up, enjoying the primal aggression that the two competitors display. I watch as the larger of the two strikes with a confidence his opponent is lacking. I'm not sure who first asked for the woman's hand, but I almost suspect it is the inadequate fighter. He takes blow after blow, the claws of his attacker raking bloody streaks down his torso. The crowd grows rowdy as the small one takes advantage of his opponent's waning energy, drinking in the spectacle. There is lots of yelling, cheering, and jeering, which grows in intensity as the battle drags on. The challenges vary wildly, and some are quite dull with an easily defeated suitor. But this is one of the more thrilling ones, the best I've seen in quite some time. I'm glad that, by happenstance, this is the one I've brought her to witness. As it continues, however, I begin to have second thoughts. Could this be too much for her? My understanding is that human females are quite sensitive and weak. Nagas are formidable, not easily deterred by blood or violence. But our women have a lower threshold than the men. Even among our own people, I can see from the crowd that it's getting to be a bit much for some of the female spectators. I turn to her in concern. "Would you like to leave yet?" I offer. "Please, I don't want to offend your senses. I'm quite enjoying the match and would be loath to leave. Still, the woman is my responsibility. As her caretaker, it feels inappropriate not to offer." Her eyes are wide and focused intently on the two men on stage. She isn't hiding her face or looking away like some of the Naga women are. "Oh, my senses have seen worse," she assures me. "I mean, I hunt and everything, so I'm used to blood. It doesn't bother me. And I've seen other fights. This one is really impressive, though. Look at them go." For a moment, I'm too distracted by her to pay attention to the fight. Thinking of a beautiful woman like her, fighting like a warrior, leaves me a bit dumbfounded. I watch her in awe, grinning to myself. Either the stories of humans are wrong, or she's truly a remarkable specimen. I begin to notice, however, that I'm not the only one staring at her. The other men are too. Many eyes are on us. There aren't that many women in attendance, and many of them are too shocked by the gruesome fight to pay attention to us. But the ones who do look unfriendly, their eyes are cold and judgmental. They lean over, whispering to each other and sneering. The men, however, are watching Gemma intently. There's no conversation, and something almost predatory about it. While the women seem mean-spirited, the men look ill-intentioned. It's a subtle but distinct difference, and it's the men who worry me the most. I'm not sure what their faces mean or what they have in mind for Gemma. Whatever it may be, it doesn't settle well with me. It's aggressive and threatening and chills my scales. Perhaps getting out of here was the right idea after all. I try to shake it off and continue watching the fight. But now that I'm aware of it, I can't help but feel the eyes looking our way. Every time I look around, there are more of them staring at us. We're drawing quite the crowd, which is both impressive and intimidating, considering the great show in front of us. The battle finally draws to a close, and a victor is announced. The woman rushes down from her terrace to the center of the arena, where she greets her new mate. They embrace and kiss enthusiastically, and the crowd applauds. Then they move off the stage, to the side of the arena where his wounds can be tended to. The loser does the same, but is sent to the opposite side. He will have limited, or possibly no, contact with the female Naga from now on, as he has been rejected as a potential mate. I lean over, ready to inform her that we are leaving now. I don't like the way the men are staring at her. My skill as a general is more than brute strength, and my intuition is strong. My intuition right now tells me to get her out of here. Just as I open my mouth to talk, I hear someone call my name from the center stage. Interrupted, I look up in surprise. I recognize the person speaking to me. He, Akuru, is a distant cousin, another member of the royal family. I do not know him well. Like me, he is not in line to be ruler, and his only real power comes from his territory. While we all engage with the king as necessary, we don't spend much time together. And I, even less than the rest, I avoid many social functions and focus on my work. I narrow my eyes, focusing on what he is declaring. His face is hostile, and there is a sneer on his lips. "I challenge you," Akuru announces. "For the human. You took her directly to your home, and no one else had a say. I'll fight you for her." A hushed silence has fallen across the crowd. They had been staring at him, and now turned to me wordlessly, waiting for my response. There are few people in Nagaland who would dare to question me, and fewer still who would be able to get away with it. He is clearly one of the former. Whether or not he is the latter remains to be seen. I look over at Gemma. She looks uncomfortable, and her head is tucked down to face the floor. I slowly stand up, drawing myself to my full, imposing height. There's a ball of rage coiled tightly in my chest, and I'm overwhelmed by the anger I feel that he thinks he has any claim to her. She is mine, and how dare this insolent little dam even question it? "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" I demand furiously, and even I am surprised by how my voice thunders across the silent arena. Orcs, gargoyles, vampires, ice monsters, demons of the dark. These beasts seek war, destruction, and power. And there's only one thing that can tame them.
Love.
This is your chance to get the uncut and unabridged audiobook bundle.
No detail is spared.
Use discount code YouTube30 for an additional 30% off of the already discounted price.
Go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Get access to countless audiobooks and discounted bundles where I talk you through every last scene.
Protheka's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive.
Chapter 12. Usza. Gemma puts a hand on my shoulder. There's no need to fight for me, right? She asks. I'm not your mate, and I'm not Naga. Gemma, take your hand off me, I say before adding, please. She jerks her hand back like I bit her. I can't afford to have people thinking that my pet is daring to tell me, her master, what to do. Luckily, no one is particularly close, so it might have gone unnoticed. I turn to look at her. Sorry, she says, looking stricken. It's okay. You're still learning our ways. And while we may not be mates, I'm responsible for you. I could refuse the challenge, but my people value strength. I can't let it appear as though I fear him. But he's huge. Gemma isn't wrong. A Kuru is powerfully built. A strong man in a race of strong people. And dim-witted, I add. Men like a Kuru fight as though they can batter their way through every obstacle using their strength alone. But what happens if he wins? He won't. She's already biting a fingernail. But what if? Then he'd take you as his and do as he pleases. Her eyes go wide. But he won't win, so you don't need to worry. I won't let him. I'll win, and then we'll get you out of here. I'm waiting, a Kuru yells from behind me. I'll be back, I say before pulling away from Gemma and gliding towards the ring. Before the entrance into the center of the arena, there's a wall of weapons. I grab a spear and a shield, battle gear I'm very comfortable using in concert with one another. The arena weapons are of adequate quality, but they aren't the best weapons one can find. Had I anticipated a challenge, I would have brought my own. In hindsight, I should have expected something to happen when I brought Gemma here. If I'm captivated by her beauty, it would make sense someone else might be. If only I hadn't spent so much time denying that's what I felt, I might have been able to see it happening in others. I don't fear my cousin, but I don't like unnecessary risks. This is a stupid fight for him to pick. Taking the weapons and climbing onto the stage, I look at a Kuru, who's chosen 2 large scimitars for this battle. They also look like arena weapons. He wasn't planning on challenging anything today. He saw Gemma and made a rash, impulsive decision. Whether it's because he's actually in lust with her or if there's some other agenda of his, I don't know. But I'm going to offer him an out. I will give you a chance to withdraw your challenge right now. No dishonor needs to be felt. We can just say it was a heat-of-the-moment decision and part ways. Scared to fight me, cousin? I can see from the lines of his face the sneer he gives me is an expression he wears often. I'm a soldier on the border of our territory. Every day I fight. But I'd much rather be slaying orcs and the enemies of our people instead of wetting the sand with your blood, Akuru. I'd like to see you try. He raises his swords. It was worth a shot. I ready myself, gripping my spear and shield. Akuru surges at me and I rush to meet him, quickly closing the gap between us. He rears up and swings both swords down at me. I feel the shock of the impact through the shield on my arm. It's a solid blow, but I angle my shield so it just glances off. Then I lash out with the spear. He twists his massive body just in time, turning what would have been a solid thrust into a glancing blow, but it's enough to open a slash along his side that bleeds freely. When the first drops of his blood hit that sand, I say, "Is that what you were hoping to see?" He doesn't seem to enjoy trading barbs as much as trading blows, and takes another swing at me. This time he's trying to attack from 2 different directions. It might seem like a good choice, but all he does is make both strikes weaker. I block one with the shield and turn the other away with the spear before I glide around, trying to get a decent strike to him back, but he's surprisingly quick for a Naga of his size. My arm is starting to ache from the force of each blow against the shield as he becomes a whirlwind of spinning death. Then something cracks. For a moment, I think he could have actually broken my arm, but it's the shield. That's the problem with arena weapons. Repeated uses weaken them, and it appears this shield has reached the end of its life. I just wish it could have held out longer. Sure, there are more shields for the taking, but once the battle starts, that's it. You fight with what you bring into the ring. My shield can take one more strike, maybe, and it's a big maybe. I back away, using distance to stay clear of his blades as I shrug my arm out of the shield. Then, I throw it at his head. It's easy enough for him to block with his 2 swords, but when he raises them to stop the iron-enforced wood from smashing into his face, I leap forward and jam my spear into his shoulder. His howl of pain fills the air, but then he swings and severs the shaft of the spear, leaving me holding a short stick and not much else. The spear tip falls from his shoulder, and my cousin's blood streams down his arm. He roars out his fury and lunges for me. I manage to dodge most of it, but one of his blades bites into my shield arm. A glancing blow, but the arm is already feeling battered from before. It's enough to throw me off balance, and when he swings his tail at me, I'm knocked to the ground hard enough to force the air out of my lungs. I want to search the crowd for Gemma to attempt to draw strength from her presence, but Akuru isn't interested in giving me the luxury of time as he charges for me. I have to act fast. I manage to roll out of the way, but his tail again slams into me with enough force to rattle my bones. He turns on me, a slash opening up a well of blood on my chest. This time, though, when he tries to hit me with his tail again, I hold up the broken spearhead I just picked up from the sand. He still lends his blow, making my whole body ache, but he also manages to drive the spear point deep into his flesh, the barbs on the spear catching and pulling it free of my grip. I must move fast. Taking the broken spear shaft, I rise up, slamming it into his wounded shoulder, hitting him hard enough that the wood splinters and then shatters. The pain of it forces him to drop one of his swords. He reaches for it, but I rake my claws across his arm and snatch the blade up before he can. I spring back and use my new weapon to block his sword swing. This may have started as some attraction to a human woman for him, but I've managed to piss him off. Good. There's plenty of power to be found in anger, but it's like trying to tame a wild beast. If you manage it, you have an effective weapon. But it's just as likely to get you killed if you don't, and I can see it in his eyes. He's all rage and no control. It makes him stupid, but it also makes him dangerous. There's little chance of him yielding now. This has become a fight to the death.
Chapter 13. Gemma. I wish I could just watch Usza fight. He's a sight to behold in battle. I'm envious of his speed and grace, but I keep getting distracted by the glares I'm getting from all around the ring. Everywhere I look, even while trying to focus on the fight in front of me, there's a wall of hostile gazes. Usza's cousin started this, but it seems like I'm the one being blamed for it. I've done nothing but exist, and because one man decided that was enough reason to think he could claim me, people are angry with me. It doesn't make sense. Or is it not so much that the challenge was issued, but that the challenge was accepted? I think all the Naga women who look upon Usza with such burning desire are mad that the Duke isn't fighting to defend them. That might explain why the women all seem to hate me. But it's not just the women. There are an equal amount of men who are just as angry with me. But why? Do they want me as well? It's not uncommon for a man to get angry about a woman he can't have, but I can't possibly be that enticing to that many Naga. Can I? Does that mean Usza finds me attractive? Perhaps this isn't just because he didn't want to look weak for not fighting. These desires I've been fighting against blaze brighter at the thought, and I smile. Let them glare at me all they want. Even the possibility that Usza feels any sort of attraction to me makes it seem worth their ire. They won't touch me, right? I watch as Usza fights and fights for me, with a mixture of cunning and ferocity. I've never seen anything quite like it. I wince when he gets hit, but as the battle progresses, I feel less and less fear about the outcome, even when things look bleak. Usza has been honest with me. He does what he says he will. If he says he'll be right back, he'll be right back. He's determined. I see it written over his whole form. He can't lose. He won't. When his shield breaks or his spear shatters, he never wavers. He adapts almost instantly to the new situation. He turns his broken weapon into a surprise attack. When I started to feel safe around him, I didn't understand it. But maybe I sensed this in him. Usza's warrior spirit burns brightly. It's like he's an avatar of the war goddess herself, as he told me. But watching him fight takes me past just feeling safe. It's impossible for me to deny it any longer or try to explain it away. I want him. I'm not even sure I can take him as he is much larger than me, but I want to find out. Perhaps this is what I've been waiting for all my life. I've always been the protector and the provider, and I'd do it all again in a heartbeat, but to have someone do that for me and do it so well causes a needy heat to pool low in my belly. Gods, how can it be this intense? I don't think watching just any man fight over me would cause such a drastic reaction. But Usza is something different. True, mates. I bury that thought as soon as it emerges. That's getting way ahead of myself. Usza mentioned something like an undeniable mutual desire, but that's between Naga. I cheer with the crowd as Usza takes up the fallen sword of his foe. He blocks a flurry of blows as the much larger Naga screams in rage. I've had to fight all my life, and I watch Usza knowing exactly what he's doing. He's waiting for his opponent to make a mistake. Then the Naga who thought he'd be able to claim me lets his rage carry him too far. He overswings. Usza sees his opening and slashes the scimitar diagonally across Akuru's torso. A bright mark of blood opens from the hip to the previously uninjured shoulder. Akuru's battle cry dies in his throat just before Usza swings again, severing his neck. The crowd erupts, the Naga's anger with me temporarily forgotten in the rush of excitement to cheer on the victor. I hop over the railing, and I'm running toward him before I even realize I'm doing it. He drops his blade and races across the sand towards me. I leap, throwing myself into him as I wrap my arms around his neck. He returns the embrace, but it only lasts for a second before deafening silence brings both of us back to our senses. The angry glares are back, but I don't care anymore. I'd mount him right here in front of all their disapproving eyes, if he asked. I turn back to him, and our gazes lock. It still feels like his stare is penetrating, but I can see it clearly now. He's also undressing me with his eyes, and it doesn't make me feel like I need a shower. Well, maybe a cold one if we don't do something soon. "No one can take you away from me," he says as he presents his hand to me, palm up. My doubts try to cling to their purchase in my mind. This is wrong. He's a literal monster. But somehow, this nightmare creature is the man of my dreams. It's confusing and a little awkward, but it still feels very right. The mutual, undeniable attraction solidifies between us, driving more doubt from me. I want this. He wants this. I feel it deep in my bones that if I take his hand now, there is only one way this plays out. The only question is how, and I'm wet just thinking about figuring that out. Is there more to it than just my body screaming for a pent-up release? I don't know, and I find I don't really care. If there is, I'm willing to follow this path where it leads. If letting Usza bed me once is all we need to satisfy our curiosity, then I can live with that, but it's pointless trying to deny or delay this any longer. I rest my hand in his, and we walk out of the arena. The gate swings open, and the crowd respectfully parts for us, but I can still feel the anger in the air. I don't know what rules, customs, or expectations we broke, but Usza seems unfazed by it, so I see no need to care. There may be consequences later, but that is a distant future. I'm more focused on the immediate future. These Naga women can hate me all they want. The Naga men can be jealous and lustful. It doesn't matter. At least for tonight, I'm Usza's. I'll give him what he wants, not out of a sense of obligation for his kindness, not because I'm his prisoner or his pet. I'll do all I can to satiate his desires because that is what I want to do. Are we moving fast? I don't know. I've never felt like this before. I've had desires, but they were a longing for intimate acts in general, or about men I'd constructed in my mind. This is the first time any man has ever aroused me like this. I walk beside him, my hand in his, all the way back to his home. We move past the soldiers, guards, and servants straight to his bedroom. He draws me to the centre of the room, to his bed. Standing with him here, the bed waiting for us to fall into it, he pulls me in with his arms around my back and his tail circling my thighs. But I stop him when I place my hand lightly on his chest. He doesn't release me, but doesn't pull me in any closer. There's something I need to know. Why are you doing all this? Sheltering me, protecting me, fighting for me. I want to hear him say it. Not just because the sound of his voice is so alluring, though that helps fuel the desire. But I want to make sure I can't guilt or doubt myself out of this moment once it starts.
Chapter 14. Usza. Sorry for the interruption. I know you were gearing up for a steamy scene, but it's way too hot for YouTube.
If we want to keep sharing our stories for free, we have to abide by YouTube's guidelines.
To get the full, unabridged audiobook, go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Browse through unabridged audiobooks, countless ebooks, and bundles offered at a discount.
If the thought of me whispering all the dirty details into your ear isn't enticing enough, use discount code YouTube30 to get 30% off of all digital products.
Story after story, audiobook after audiobook, the worlds of Protheka are waiting for you.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
But unabridged, it's unforgettable. Chapter 15. Gemma. Gods below or above, Usza frightens me with his sharp smile and fearless desire, and yet I feel safe, bound by the coil of his tail. He is not what I would have expected to find in Nagaland, considerate and protective, without losing an ounce of his deeply ingrained confidence. I never imagined myself getting involved with anyone. My life before this left no room for romance. I didn't have the luxury. Anything beyond survival was a waste of energy, and sex of any kind was out of the question. Until now. The time Usza has given me to recover has broadened my desires, and the good food has made me restless. Now I expect he wants me to return the favour. It is not with resistance that my hand drops to the level of his waist, however. I've never done this sort of thing before. Never? He rumbles, contentment laced in his words. Not even with another human.
As much as Samara and I want to finish what these two characters have started, it looks like this chapter is about to get too hot for YouTube to handle.
Unfortunately, we have to pause here because their guidelines won't allow us to reveal the spiciest details.
To keep bringing you these free audiobooks, we have to follow their rules.
But don't worry. You can experience the full, unabridged version over at worldsofprotheka.com, where the boundaries of passion and fantasy collide.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off any of our unabridged audiobooks set in the rich and immersive worlds of Protheka.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
With these scenes, it will be unforgettable. Chapter 16. Usza. When I fall asleep with Gemma in my arms, it's the first time in a very long time that sleep has come that quickly. And when I awake in the morning, well before sunrise, I feel like a whole new man. Even supremely exhausted, my military training and regime have meant I wake up at the same time in the morning, every morning. I'm used to getting moving well before all but my most devoted servants and soldiers. I look down at her sleeping form, and my body yearns to tangle with her again. But I can't wake her. While she's been a soldier of a sort all her life, she doesn't need to do that anymore. She can relax. There should be plenty of time for that later. When the tether between Gemma and me first formed, I tried to tell myself that it was a fleeting curiosity, and once it was satisfied, I'd no longer be held under her sway. That thought seems so ridiculous now. I was a fool to try to deny this. Making love to her satisfied the curiosity, but only further inflamed the need. If anything else, I'm even more under her spell. Though I'm realizing the absurdity of trying to deny our attraction as some form of bewitching power she held. There is no magic here, or at least not the kind you'd find in a spell book. I want nothing more than to be with her, inside her, but I still have my duties to attend to. Getting out of bed is difficult, but whereas before, it was exhaustion that made my limbs heavy, now it's the comfort of being with this incredible woman. As I slip out of bed, she stirs, groaning slightly. "Where are you going?" she asks as she captures my hand in a soft, sleepy grip that may as well be mithril chains as far as my ability to break free of it is concerned. "I have to go see my troops and patrol the border. I was going to just let you sleep." "So this isn't you running away?" "What? You're not regretting anything, are you? Does waiting so long to do it count?" "Charmer," she says with a sleepy grin. "So, you'll be back?" "Yes. As soon as my duties are fulfilled, I'll return." She releases my hand, and I stand at my full height, admiring her. Her breathing grows steady once more as she falls back asleep. I turn and glide towards the door. "Usza?" So not as asleep as I thought. "Yes, Gemma. You don't regret last night, so can I assume that'll happen again?" "Oh, it will most definitely happen again and again and again as long as you're willing. Always. Go back to sleep. I'll have food brought to you in a while." And we did make love again that evening, and then the following morning, then during lunch. I simply can't get enough of her. She may be inexperienced, but she's a very attentive and adventurous lover. And I feel loved for the first time ever. It's like I've been given a drink of water after walking through a desert and only ever having heard of water before. She doesn't expect anything from me except, perhaps, those things I already want to give her gladly. I don't cherish her or pleasure her out of a sense of duty or obligation. I do it because I want to. There are no great burdens with her. I've lived in this house for many years, and while I've used the word home to discuss it, it never felt quite right until now. She makes this place finally feel like home to me, not just a place where I have a bed I hardly sleep in. Oreko has warmed up to her, perhaps because it means I'm finally sleeping. I feel silly for only now realizing it's perhaps because he's such a good assistant that he tries to keep the same hours I do. Gemma has made everything in my life better. And unlike before we acknowledged our attraction and made love, it seems as though I have an easier time focusing on my duties as a soldier and leader. I still think of her constantly, but she's my motivation for doing it well, not a distraction. Before, I thought duty was enough. I thought being content was enough. But I see now that she makes me a better Naga, because she gives me a reason to do the work that's far more profound than just obligation. I'm still trying to figure out how to put what I feel about her into words. She is precious to me, and I'd do anything for her. And for a week, I feel like everything is finally falling into place. My life had been holding its breath until I found Gemma. Then, while in my office happily reviewing field reports, there's a knock at my door. Before I even have a chance to say enter, the door opens. What impertinent fool would just barge into my office? "Cousin," Geetha says, all false smiles and enthusiasm as he bursts into the room, followed by a small contingent of the royal guard. "Geetha, What brings the Crown Prince to the borderlands? My father, the king, sent me. Geetha loves saying, my father, the king. Like any of us need a reminder of who his father is, or that he is next in line for the throne. Oh, does the king wish you to join me in defending our border? Geetha's nostrils flare as he recognizes the baited trap. I've been asking for more soldiers. After I slew a Kuru, by rights, most of his soldiers should have been mine, but I'd been told there were still some issues that needed to be resolved. While I never said it directly, the wording of my letters to the crown perhaps made it clear that I was unimpressed with delays. Not as of yet, he says, pulling from his satchel a sealed scroll. Given who is delivering it, seeing the royal emblem pressed into the wax isn't a surprise, but it still carries weight. I accept it from him, break the seal, and unfurl the scroll. Duke Usza, it is hereby decreed by royal edict that you shall forthwith present yourself before His Royal Highness, King Ulrug, along with the human female you have taken on as a pet. The rest of the letter listed the logistical details of when and where I should arrive. The king wants to meet Jay, my pet. I watch Geetha's face, and he can't suppress a self-satisfied smile. Recently, a group of humans were captured in our territory. They must have managed to slip past you. I can understand it's harder to find them when they don't fall out of the sky. The dig at me and details don't go unnoticed. He wants me to know he has information on how Gemma arrived. It's not like it's a secret we found her, but Geetha must really want to get under my skin about this. Since there are more appearing at once than have ever been in the kingdom before, my father, the king, has taken an interest in these lower beings. So he wants to see your pet. I look at the scroll again, and then back to Geetha's smug face. Very well. I'll leave as soon as possible. Please give my regards to your mother, the queen. I'm sure she'll be delighted. Geetha and his entourage file out of my office. I toss the scroll on my desk and stare out the window as Geetha and the royal guard leave. Just wanting to meet my pet seems like a poor excuse to send the prince. There's more going on here. I hate these games the high nobles play. I can't refuse a royal edict, but I must prepare for whatever is on the horizon.
Chapter 17. Gemma. The stark architecture of the Naga extends to the castle. It seems like only their arenas get much adornment. The castle in Cario looms in front of us, and I can't help but feel a cold shiver when the castle's shadow falls over us. When Usza told me we were going to see the king, he didn't look happy about it. Nor did he want to take men with him, but Kajir insisted. Usza was brooding and pensive most of the day's journey it took to get here. When he told me that they found more humans, I was shocked. Without much else to do on the trip but think, I wondered if perhaps any of those humans were part of my group from Leondor. The worst part is that I still don't know if that would be a good thing or a bad thing. While getting found by the Naga turned out well for me, I'm aware of how differently it could have gone with any other Naga. Before we get to the gate, Usza turns to me and says, "We may not be able to be as affectionate here as we were back home." I nod. A day's journey hasn't gotten me any closer to ascertaining the reason for this visit, so just be on your guard, okay? And just try to adapt to the situation as it unfolds. I nod again. "Are you okay?" he asks, intercepting my hand on its way to my mouth. "Yeah, just nervous. You don't seem happy about this trip." I'm not, and being nervous is good as long as it means you're alert, but not if it makes you jump at shadows. He releases my hand as we pass under the archway into the castle. It feels like all the warmth has gone out of him. Even before we were honest with each other and ourselves about our feelings and desires, he burned with passion and intensity. Now he is very muted, cold-blooded. Even as I know this is a mask he's putting on, it hurts to see him become this distant, emotionless paradox of himself. But I say nothing. When the door to the carriage opens, we're greeted by a regal-looking, yellow-scaled Naga man. "My lord, my name is Vanela. I'll be your attendant during your stay here," Let me see to it that your pet... Vanela reaches for my arm, but Usza's hand lashes out and seizes his wrist. What exactly do you think you're doing? He asks. Sorry, my lord, I was going to see that your pet was properly housed, and since she's off her leash... She stays by my side. I will leash her only when I see fit. That may very well be true, but the king and queen have certain expectations of how pets are to be attired while in the castle. If you'd like, I'll have the appropriate leash and collar brought to your room. Leash and collar? Very well then, Usza says, releasing his grip on the attendant. I'm still new to figuring out how to read the facial expressions of the Naga. Subtle emotions still elude me, but the disgust on the attendant's face leaves no room for doubt. But he then quickly masks it. Something feels off about this whole situation. I'm not sure how I could explain this feeling to Usza, but the part of my brain that kept me alive for my years on the street screams that this is a trap. Please wait here just a moment, and I'll take you to your room, your grace. Vanela glides off. I want to be close to Usza, to feel his arm around me, but he already said we were unlikely to be able to show affection like that. If I'm his pet, that makes sense, as does Vanela's reaction, as long as he suspects that the affection between Usza and I goes beyond what one would do with a pet. I'm not a person. Usza struggled with what to call me or what I should call him at first. And from the way others have talked to him when I've been present, it's not like I'm shocked by the idea of being called a pet. But being treated like one is a different story for me. But even in the beginning, when that's what Usza was referring to me as, I never felt like a pet. Like something not a person. If someone saw me as a pet, the way Usza and I interacted would be horrifying, gross, and disturbing. I feel my own stomach turn at the thought. It felt different back at his house, like pet was just a word. I had learned to adapt to the idea that Naga would view me as less than them. That was my existence every day with the Dark Elves. Humans had no say, no rights. We were barely considered people, but at least we were considered close enough to people to be worth screwing. But here, in Nagaland, did I really not count as enough of a person that it was considered some kind of abhorrent behaviour to have sex with me? I never thought it possible, but I suddenly missed the attitude of the Dark Elves. They didn't think we had the right to refuse. I struggle to pick which is worse. That I can't say yes, or that I can't say no. Which one is more dehumanising? By the time the attendant returns, I feel like I'm on the verge of tears, but I swallow them down. I will not cry in front of these bastards. We follow the attendant through the halls, taking a winding route. I'm not sure why, but when he immediately turns around when another Naga appears at the end of the hall, I realise he doesn't want to be seen. It's probably because of me. I'm supposed to be leashed, and I'm not. Would Vanela get in trouble for not immediately taking me where I was supposed to go, and I was seen as just wandering around the castle, like some lost dog they're afraid is going to make a mess on the carpet? When we finally get to the room, Usza ushers me inside and closes the door behind me. He doesn't say a word, but I can see from the tight set of his jaw he's angry. I know he's mad at the situation or at Vanela. Still, I can't help but feel like this is somehow my fault. Then I look up and see a collar of leather and metal sitting on the desk. Hooked to it is a metal chain, my leash. I walk up, and then I see, lying next to it, a piece of fabric. I'm not sure what it is until I pick it up. It's supposed to be a dress or something, but I think it barely qualifies. Short skirt, barely their halter, gauzy and translucent. This is not a thing I'd want to wear when being presented to royalty. The flimsy dress would leave me practically naked. I'm so confused because it's so similar to things that Dark Elves have made their human slaves wear for easy access. If people seem so disturbed by how Usza and I act, why dress me like this? But maybe it's not seen by them the same way it is by humans. They may be like the Dark Elves, and a naked body is nothing to raise eyebrows at. Tears well up in my eyes. And then Usza is there. His hand brushes my cheek, carrying away the first tears to fall. I'm sorry about all this. I wish there was more that I could do, but I promise I won't let anything happen to you. I nod and change my clothes. You want to know what's really messed up about this dress? I ask, half laughing. What? In a different context, I think I'd feel kind of sexy in it. He smiles, though it's forced. With the dress on, I don't feel like I can walk very fast without falling out of it. Are you ready? He asks. As I'll ever be. I don't know what awaits me, and I'm terrified to find out.
Rosenfire, our family holds great weight and power in Orthani, and yet I hear whispers.
Do you think he can take him?
There is no way that this could happen.
No, more books. I can't remain locked in this ivory tower a moment longer.
She's perfect. The Baron's daughter must be found.
Julius, we shouldn't.
Why shouldn't we?
I am not a full dark elf. I do not possess their ethereal beauty. How will I find a mate?
The lowly Baron's son apparently has shown that he has the same gift of fire-wielding as I, if not stronger.
I am the family's dirty little secret. I am not the future of the family. Dukan is.
This world was created from a seed of evil.
I propose we take Dukan out of the picture, permanently.
Please, let me go.
If you want to join the poor humans who are bought and sold in the markets on a daily basis, you will find a way to get there.
I am free, and I am terrified.
You will never escape me.
I can try.
You will fail. Get seasons 1 and 2 of the Dark Elf series from worldsofprotheka.com.
Protheka's magic is eternal. This series will show you why.
Chapter 18. Usza. I'll take care of you, I assure her. Just trust me. She nods, though I can see the uneasiness on her face. It's not a look of distrust, but discomfort. It occurs to me how intimately I've come to recognize her various expressions. How once I couldn't tell even the most obvious emotions apart on a human face. It's a new knowledge, but one that I treasure. Holding her leash, I try to smile reassuringly as we shut the door to our suite. My suite, I mentally correct myself. It will never do for them to see me treat her as an equal, even if I think of her that way. I lead her to the great hall where we will meet with King Ulrug. The corridors are lined with Naga. Some are extended members of the royal family. Others are, while not royal, of noble birth. Many of them have no authority or responsibility, and they spend most of their time hanging about the palace in idle recreation. When we get closer to the heavy brass doors of the great hall, the atmosphere changes. This is a space reserved for those waiting for their audience with the king. The crowd is, unlike the spoiled rich we just passed, here with intent and purpose. They are serious-minded, focused on the task or job that has brought them here. My own mother and father are among them. As I approach, they rise from the plush velvet chairs that they are resting in. They both hurry over. I tend to be defensive around my parents. The agitated look on their faces tells me that this time will be no different. I greet them, politely but wary. Luckily, our visit is cut short, as a guard almost immediately calls me for an audience with the king. The guard holds the thick metal door open, ushering us through. I give one last glance to my parents and their disapproving eyes. Then, with a deep breath, I walk inside the great hall where King Ulrug waits. I fist the leash nervously in my hand and glance over at Gemma. Her head is bowed demurely. The king is seated, centered between two humans. They are standing, held in place with chains. I stop abruptly a few feet away and reflexively stiffen. She must sense the change somehow and lifts her head to observe. "Mary!" she exclaims suddenly. "Joshua!" She's startled by what she sees, enough to drop the pretense and forget her surroundings. They turn to her with tearful eyes. She runs toward them. I wince, but tug her leash firmly anyway. My chest tightens, stabbing painfully with a long-buried emotion that I'd be unable to put into words. But I feel it deeply within myself. I feel everything deeply inside of myself now, for the first time in a long time, ever since meeting her. One of the princes, standing with the rest of the court on the side of the room, sneers at me. "Your training is lacking," he chides me. "You must punish the animal if you expect obedience." She straightens rigidly and turns back to face me. "Forgive us, King Ulrich," I apologize, trying to sound languid. We're still addressing the behavior. She's new to me, and my first attempt after all. Her eyes become hard, and I implore her with my own to understand. I continue the charade, hoping that our audience buys it. I prefer to rebuke her privately. I assure you that the matter will be taken care of. But I find the correct remedy is a bit too much for the more sensitive-minded who may be witness to it. She pales and averts her gaze to the floor. I swallow hard, hoping that she can find a way to forgive me later. Then I take a step toward her. She flinches, and my chest constricts even tighter. "Kneel," I command forcefully. Gemma obeys without a word, and King Ulrich looks pleased. "So they are trainable," he notes. "I hope to learn from your experience later. For now, please join us for a banquet. Bring your creature with you. I'd like to observe more." "Certainly," I agree, bowing respectfully. Dismissed, I pull her leash as gently as I can while still giving the appearance of authority to those watching. "Come!" I bark. In the formal dining hall, the food is served by the waitstaff. The staff nearly outnumber those in attendance, as this meal has been limited to the select few. Some banquets are more like parties, open to all those who are at court for the day. Regardless of the day, that is inevitably a crowd. This one, however, is different. It's only members of the royal family, the king's most trusted advisors, and a few like myself who have been included by special request. King Ulrich begins with the usual perfunctory toast. We wait until he begins eating before joining in. In a few minutes, the mood begins to relax. Conversation and laughter start to flow easily. Gemma sits on the floor beside me, curled up into a defensive ball. I much prefer our quiet meals back home. My face must give me away, and my mother besides me takes the opportunity to scold me. "I can't believe it," she says, shaking her head. "A pet human. We thought you were better than that. We raised you to be a serious leader." "Why can't I still be a serious leader?" I return. "The people in my territory would be hard-pressed to find an example of poor leadership. I've done quite well by them, and my pet is a comfort, not a distraction." She lets out a frustrated breath, while my father frowns over at me. "Comfort?" she retorts. "That's exactly who keeps pets. The weak-minded, spineless court dilettantes who are here for breeding, but have no skills to offer. Worthless types who keep themselves busy with pointless comforts." My temper flares. The presence of a soul is an asset, not a hindrance, though I wouldn't expect you to know. Others at our table are pretending not to hear us, but the expressions on their faces make it clear that we're causing a disturbance. She leans over and hisses in my ear, "Outside now." I drop Gemma's leash to the floor and stand. She tugs my father's arm, who reluctantly puts down his fork to follow her. In the hallway, we bicker privately for several minutes. I can tell that she, ultimately, is trying to convince me to get rid of Gemma. But I will consider no such thing, and she finally resigns herself to it. For now, at least, I'm certain that we'll be having this conversation again in the future. But at the moment, my father wants to finish his meal. I suspect he supports her position, but is too distracted by the food waiting for him to engage properly in the argument. She recognizes that the discussion currently is a lost cause, and we certainly can't afford to lose favor with the king. So returning to the banquet before we are missed is in everyone's best interest. She fixes her face into a tight scowl. "You'll only have yourself to blame when you learn that I'm right," she warns. "No good can come from keeping a human around. For any reason." Then she turns around abruptly, slinking back into the banquet hall gracefully. As she opens the door, she pastes a cordial smile on her face. My father glares at me, looking vexed. Then he follows her. Though he hasn't spent as many words on the subject, I can tell exactly where he stands. I close my eyes and take a deep breath, trying to calm myself. When I feel ready, I return to my seat, carefully avoiding meeting both my parents' eyes. I look under the table for Gemma, partly because seeing her would soothe me after my little spat with my folks, partly because I don't want to run her over by accident as I find my place. She's nowhere to be seen, and my blood feels like it freezes inside of me. She was just here a moment ago. My eyes dart in panic around the room, searching. Where could she be?
Chapter 19. Gemma. From my position on the floor, I can't easily see his face, but I do hear the hum of his voice occasionally as he eats. At this stage, it's my only reassurance. I can't make out what he's saying clearly, but his voice begins to sound irritated. Then I feel my leash go slack as it drops to the floor, and he leaves abruptly. I hesitate at first, not sure what to do. Tentatively, I sit up slightly. I'm still on the floor, but now kneeling rather than lying down. I can't see much in the room. I don't dare stand and draw any additional attention to myself. I look around, wondering where he went. From down here, there's no sign of him. My attempts to hide on the floor aren't working especially well. Plenty of the Naga are staring openly, as though I am a curious sideshow attraction. It's very uncomfortable. I don't think I'm necessarily in danger, with so many witnesses, but I'd much prefer it if Usza were here. Mary and Joshua are missing as well. I know for a fact that they're nowhere in the room. Even from under the table, I would be able to pick out the only other sets of non-scaled legs. Are they pets, like me? Are they owned by the king? Somehow, judging by the tearful faces I briefly saw, I doubt whoever claims them is as good of a caretaker as Usza. I bite nervously at my fingers, worrying. I hope that they're okay, wherever they are. I'm so lost in my thoughts that I barely notice when a female Naga glides up to me. I jump in surprise when she leans down to address me. "You, human," she says. "Usza is waiting for you outside. Come." I rise quickly to my feet, not wanting to keep her waiting. I follow her down the hall and out a door that opens into a courtyard. It's dark, and I can't really see. She doesn't seem to have the same problem as me, moving with ease as if she knows the layout so well she doesn't need to see. I try to keep up with her, but I have to move carefully so that I don't trip in the dim light. It doesn't take long for me to lose her completely. I stop when I realise that I'm lost, looking around. There's no sign of anyone. The woman, Usza, no one at all. "Usza?" I call tentatively. No one answers. I hear a hissing sound and turn around, trying to find the source. But it seems to be coming from everywhere, all at once. From the shadows, several Naga move in. They have me encircled, penned between them. I can feel my heart begin to race anxiously. They move closer, laughing and pointing. My throat goes dry as I realise there's no chance of escape. One comes so near that I can feel his breath on my cheek as he laughs. I wince, bracing for the worst. "How did you do it? Make Usza so crazy for you? Did you slip him something? A potion? A plant?" he questions, his eyes narrowed as he looks me over. "What?" I reply, genuinely confused. "Everyone's talking about it," he said, sounding intrigued. "That he treats you differently, like you're his greatest treasure." I bite my lip, doing my best to conceal my expression. Thinking that Usza treasures me makes me want to giggle like a little girl. But this is not the time or the place, and we could both be in great danger if I react to the words. His eyes peer at me, scrutinizing me, and I try not to tremble. "Treasure, a human for a prized possession," he continues scornfully. "It's madness." His face brightens, suddenly fascinated more than distasteful. "So how did you do it?" he asks again. I look around at the others and realise that it's not a rhetorical question or joke. They're waiting for my answer. They think there really is some clear answer, some mind-altering poison or drug that I've slipped him. They want to understand how I've managed such a good trick. I'm not a treasure, I respond. I didn't do anything to him. He kept me for fun. I'm a slave, not a prize. Another one of the men shakes his head. Usza doesn't need a human slave, he argues. He already has Naga servants to provide anything he could want. Why keep a useless human? Fun, a third chimes in sarcastically. Usza, who has never had fun in his life, suddenly turned to a human to show him how. The first speaks again. We'll find out soon enough. When we see how he reacts when she's in danger, we'll get to the heart of the matter. Danger? My head begins to spin at the threat, but I won't let them see me scared. He grabs for my leash, which has been dangling from my neck this entire time. He wraps the end around a nearby tree branch, and my nerves tingle worriedly. This, I know, can't end well. We can't have someone like you getting close and personal with a noble, he explains. The king will never allow it. It's unacceptable. I bow my head, trying to look mild. Forgive me, sir, but you're looking in the wrong place, I deny calmly. I'm not close and personal to any Naga. I'm a slave that he captured, nothing more. I understand exactly what is at risk for Usza here. If they consider him a traitor to his own people, he will be punished severely. He may lose everything. I've never been high enough in society to have anything worth losing. I can't even imagine how it feels to be anything but a nobody. I won't be the reason they make him a nobody. I won't let him sacrifice any more for me. He already did enough by rescuing me, giving me a safe place to stay. I owe it to him, to protect him. I can't give him away, not even if it means saving my own neck. Let them try to get it out of me. They all glide back, moving away from me slightly. I watch warily, hoping that this is a sign they're leaving me alone, at least for now. But instead, I hear an angry hiss. Someone new moves in, charging toward me angrily. When she reaches my side, I can see well enough to recognize her as the woman who brought me out here. She raises her arm, then brings it down sharply. I feel the sting against my skin and cry out involuntarily. Now I know why they backed away. They were just giving her space to whip me. The legs, one of the men calls. She grabs my shoulder, spinning me around. There's a maniacal look in her eyes that chills me. It scares me, in a way, more than the Orcs had. They were monsters, but that was just them. She hates me, and it's personal. She'll stop at nothing to make me suffer. In fact, the more I suffer, the more she'll enjoy it. She whips me again, harder this time. It hits me in the back, and I writhe in pain. Hot tears blind my eyes. She lets out a primal howl, sounding enraged. Usza is mine, mine, she screams, striking me again. He will be my mate, and no one can get in my way. She lashes out again, hitting the back of my knees this time. My legs buckle underneath me. The leash, still caught on the tree, jerks against my throat. Everything begins to go grey, lying on the ground. Mercifully, at least I can't hear her scream over the ringing in my ears.
Chapter 20. Usza. My eyes flicker around the room, searching for her. I do my best to keep the panic off my face, though I can feel it rising in my throat. No one needs to know. Certainly not my parents, who just told me moments ago that nothing good will come from her anyway. People are still eating, talking quietly amongst themselves. No one is paying much attention to me, which gives me a few seconds to look without being noticed. My mother, luckily, is too busy giving me the cold shoulder to have any idea, but I still don't see her anywhere. She draws a lot of stares, meaning that she should be easy to spot even in a crowd. She's not here. I'm certain of it. I try to look calm and unrattled. I don't want to draw attention to answer a bunch of questions. I stand up leisurely, acting unhurried, and move toward the door, glancing around to make sure no one is watching. I then sneak quickly out of the room. Where could she have gone, I wondered to myself. Did she try to find Mary and Joshua? I rolled the thought around in my head, but quickly discounted. She's an intelligent person. She would know that if they are in chains, she won't be able to help them. She wouldn't risk it now, knowing she can't succeed. She, like me, understands the value of timing and strategy. She must be here somewhere, I resolve. I decide that I will scour every inch of the castle if I need to. Even if she's mad at me for the way that I've treated her, it's hard for me to believe that she left the banquet hall without me. Instead, I begin to comprehend. It's more likely that someone has taken her. Now, I think to myself, if someone has taken her, where would they go? I worry that I don't have time for a lot of guesswork. I must decide quickly and correctly. In the castle, I determine there are too many people around to witness everything. I don't necessarily think that the Naga would protect her like me, but I don't think they'd be able to keep it a secret. There'd be too much noise and commotion that would give her location away. There's little privacy unless you go into a bedroom suite. Gemma is strong and fierce, and I don't think she'd let herself end up in a stranger's bedroom. That leaves me with one final option: outside. Historically, my intuition and deductive reasoning has led to my great success in battle. I'm going to trust it now. Though, to be honest, I'm not sure what other choice I have. Walking down the hallway, I try the first door that I come across. It opens into the courtyard. Though I don't spend much time at the castle anymore, I did always like walking through the many gardens here. It's a lush, beautiful place to be alone with your thoughts. I'm too worried to spend a lot of time in my memories. My only thought right now is finding Gemma. Still, it doesn't fail to occur to me that I enjoy the privacy of the gardens for personal reasons. But someone trying to hide a human might find them to be an ideal spot as well. I hurry past the rows of ornamental trees, keeping my eyes and ears peeled for any sign of her. I hear an unfamiliar noise and stop to listen. What is that? It's certainly not just bugs in the garden, whatever it is, and I rush toward the source. As I get closer, it becomes clear that something is wrong. It's too loud, and there's too many voices for it to be innocent. I hear a girl shrieking and several men, though I do not hear Gemma. My heart starts to fill with dread. Though I was prepared for something bad, it feels different now that I'm facing it as a reality. The worst part is the unknown, the fact that I have no idea what has happened to Gemma. I suspect that I'll solve Gemma's mysterious disappearance soon. I just hope that she's all right and not shook up too badly. The Naga can be quite cold and unfeeling. I round the corner toward the sound and find Evaya, her arm high in the air. She strikes at the ground, and I hear the unmistakable noise of a whip cracking. I come closer, puzzled at the behavior. The panic I felt is suddenly replaced by bile, as it slowly dawns on me that she's not whipping the ground. The crumpled figure of Gemma lays at her feet. Belatedly, it hits me with force that everything is so much worse than I had ever expected. If I wasn't here now, they would have killed her. I move as fast as I can, crying out to stop her. She turns, surprised. Her face is contorted, twisted up with hate. She looks like a monster, and I am aghast. I reach out to wrestle the whip out of her arms. I throw it away as far as I can and bend down to scoop Gemma up. I cradle her to my body, checking her over. The collar around her neck has left a bruise, and I pull it off her completely. She is unconscious, her skin pale and clammy. But she's at least breathing, I note. The men scoff at me, and Evaya shrieks something unintelligible. I ignore them completely, focusing on what Gemma needs now. There will be time for them later. Right now I need to save her. I don't care who is watching. I don't care what they think. The cuts on her back are open and bleeding. I can feel the blood against my hands as I hold her. It's warm and drips down my arm. Human blood, I notice, has a distinct coppery smell that invades my nose. Evaya is still yelling. I've had enough and flare the snake hood that covers my head angrily. She recoils, suddenly quiet. I spin around, hurriedly carrying Gemma back to our suite as quickly as I can. I use my tail to push open the doors, holding her protectively to avoid causing her any more pain. I try to find a healer, even yelling down the halls for one. But no one comes, and no one reacts to my cries. Realizing that no help is coming, I set her down gently on the bed in our room. Then I begin to tend to her wounds myself. I touch her raw skin tenderly, as gently as I can. It's covered in angry, deep welts, and I feel overpowered by how furious it makes me. I almost regret letting Evaya go like that, and think that if she were here now, I'd kill her with my own 2 hands. But right now, Gemma is what matters. I remind myself of that, trying to focus on healing her. I can deal with Evaya later. When I am finally satisfied that she will be all right, I glide into the bathroom. I dampen a cloth with warm water. Then I carefully wipe the blood from her skin, moving slowly so as to not open the wounds that I just finished closing. Finally, she is clean. She is still sleeping, so I pull a comfortable blanket over her. I smooth her hair back from her face lovingly. Then I slide across the room. I shut the door quietly behind me, not wanting to wake her. Outside the room, I can feel the anger that I've been pushing down begin to bubble again, violently to the surface. It's time to face the king. I will not hide any longer.
Chapter 21. Gemma. Am I dead? I murmur to myself as my eyes blink open. My body feels surprisingly pain-free, though I remember being beaten quite soundly. The idea that I have died, to be frank, seems the most logical answer in my half-awake state. I stretch out carefully on the bed. Everything seems to be intact and still in place. Standing up from the bed, I wince. I guess I do still have some pain, but it's mild, considering my memory of the events. Looking around the room, I begin to piece things together. I'm very much still among the living, and in the room that Usza brought me to when we first came to the castle. I lift my tunic, which I have been dressed in again instead of that see-through dress, to expose my back, trying to see in the mirror. The marks are still there, but look nearly healed. The skin is closed again, pulled shut, even though the tear was recent. Pink, glowing skin covers the wounds that are already mending back together. I remember how the healer had fixed me up after my fall from the cliff, and I wonder if Usza did the same for me this time. As I redress and fix my outfit, I walk around the room looking for him. He's nowhere to be seen, which worries me. It doesn't make sense that he would take care of me and then promptly disappear, unless he had no choice. But if they were punishing him for me, why would they leave me in the bed to rest? Or were they coming back for me next? I quietly slip out the door, my eyes silently searching the halls. It's empty here, though I'm cautiously suspicious. They wouldn't really leave me entirely unsupervised, would they? I creep down the hall and soon get my answer. I hear the distinctive, shimmering sound that the Naga makes when they move. I press myself against the wall, hiding behind the ornate drapes and holding my breath. I thought the king would have him killed. He should have, if you ask me. I hear one masculine voice saying. You're a guard, another chastises. You'd do well to remember your place, or you might be the next one killed. True, the first voice agrees. Still, the punishment doesn't seem nearly strong enough medicine to me. The king isn't going to toss Usza out carelessly. The reply begins to sound faint, and I can tell that they're moving away. He needs him to win against the Orcs. What, you're going to take over as the general? He snorts derisively. I peek out from behind the curtain, watching them move. When they're out of sight, I dart out as quietly as I can. I move in the direction that they came from, originally. They clearly know what happened to Usza, and if I retrace their steps, I may find him. I creep stealthily down the hall and begin to pick up voices talking nearby. I approach, finally finding the room that they are coming from. Then I duck down beside an open door, trying to see inside. I carefully poke my head around the corner and see a small crowd gathered inside. 2 guards are dragging Usza to his feet, lifting him by the elbows off the ground. His back is covered in red whip marks that dramatically contrast his green scales. I gasp, covering my mouth to muffle the sound with one hand. It's too late, and someone whips around to see where the noise came from. It's Usza's mother, and I duck quickly back out of sight. She must not see me, because no one comes. I lean against the wall, trembling and shaky. Hot tears spring to my eyes, thinking of Usza's pain. Even if they let us be together, I cannot heal him the way that he did for me. I hear her speak, though I do not know who she is addressing. "It had to be done," she declares confidently. "Protecting a human," she scoffs derisively. "Perhaps we can whip the sense back into him." I want to rush in there, help him, kiss him, protect him, anything. But what can I do? Anything that I can think of seems certain to make things worse. Just then, a Naga slinks up next to me. I didn't see them coming in time and reflexively protect my face with my hands. Then I recognize who it is. It's the female, the one who tricked me outside to whip me. I ball my hands into fists. She laughs. "You can't fight your way out of this," she points out mockingly. I know that she is right, and my shoulders slump. She leans forward, pointing a finger at me. "You have a choice to make," she announces, watching my face. I meet her eyes but say nothing, showing her that I am listening. "As long as you are here, he will lose everything. The king's trust, his position, maybe even his life," she points out. "He'll have you and the scorn of his people." I lower my eyes, horrified by the idea. That isn't what I want for Usza, but what is she suggesting? "Or," she continues pointedly, "you can leave. I'll send you out of Nagaland, and never tell Usza. He won't know where you are, and in time he'll forget you. Go back to his old life, regain his senses." She looks at me expectantly. I say nothing. Finally, she breaks the silence. "He was willing to protect you. Now, this is how you can protect him," she urges. The idea of leaving Usza claws at my heart. I don't want to part from him. It seems too great of a sacrifice. But he has a life here, and a future. As long as I am here, he's throwing all of that away. I know it. Leaving will ruin my life. But considering my background, I'm lucky to even be alive right now. I wouldn't be, if it wasn't for Usza's interference in the first place. If I leave, he can be happy again. I understand that I'm giving up my chance for contentment by leaving. But a poor street orphan giving up her meagre future doesn't seem nearly as high of a price. I stare coldly into her eyes, lifting my head. I hate to agree with her, of all people. She tried to kill me, and here I am, relying on her for help. It seems absurd. But what about this situation doesn't? It's all surreal, a mad fever dream of a human who fell in love with a snake man. "Fine," I agree resolutely, doing my best to look determined. "I'll leave this place and never return. It doesn't matter where she sends me. Perhaps back home where I belong." Thinking of home, a thought occurs to me. I straighten up, wishing that I hadn't agreed so quickly. Now I have nothing to bargain with, as I make a humble request. "The 2 humans who were with the king, Mary and Joshua, we came here together and got separated. Can they leave with me?" She seems to be thinking it over, then nods her agreement. I let out a sigh of relief. "Getting all of the humans out of Nagaland is in everyone's best interest," she declares. "Your arrival has caused an upset, and I'll be happy to have none left. Being rid of one pest is hardly a success while others remain." I ignore her words. I need her help, so I just accept the insult. Besides, I've been called worse. It eases the pain in my heart some to realize that I'm doing good for everyone. Usza will have his life return to normal. Mary and Joshua will escape their chains and be saved. And as long as I keep telling myself that, I can ignore the little voice that keeps asking, "But what about me?" There isn't much left of the world after the Orcs came.
Savage. Brutal. Merciless.
If you're a woman, you're property. Even to other humans.
What happens when an orc stakes his claim on a human woman? Who would dare to stop him?
Me.
Chapter 22. Usza. After everything that happened, I'm nervous about leaving Gemma behind. Still, the longer I wait, the more the poisonous influence of ignorant Naga like Ivaya has to spread. I have to put a stop to this here and now. I see the attendant Vanela turn down the hall and I dart towards him. "Where is the king?" I ask. He looks nervous. "Tell me now." He must see the rage in me, and the dutiful subject doesn't want to see that unleashed on his sovereign. "Perhaps you should calm down some before—" My grip tightening around his throat apparently makes it hard to speak. I have no intent on harming anyone except those who get in my way and prevent me from speaking with the king. He can only make a strangled sound as he beats uselessly at my chest and arm. I release my grip, and he gasps for air. "Now, where is the king? He's—" The attendant breaks into a fit of coughing, but then recovers. "Throne room. Talking with your parents. Said not to be disturbed. Too bad." I surge forward, gliding down the stone hallway. When I come to the throne room, the two guards, a green scale and a yellow scale, stand in front of the doorway, blocking my path. I need to speak with the king. I try to keep my voice calm. The attendant may have been a weaselly bastard, but these guards have done nothing to earn my anger. But I can tell from the way they stiffen that they can see the fury in my eyes. "The king said he does not wish his council to be disturbed," the green scale says. "Gentlemen, I'm going in there. He's speaking with my parents, and I'm the subject of the discussion. I should be in there. You have two choices. You can say that I beat you senseless to get past you, or I can actually beat you senseless to get past you." They look at each other. The yellow scale brandishes his spear at me. I don't know what he was expecting, but I snatch the spear from his grip and then smash him over the head with the shaft. He falls to the ground in a boneless heap, the blunt end of the spear held forward. I turn to the other guard who holds his spear defensively. "Do you intend the king any physical harm?" the green scale asks. "No." I can see his mind working, calculating the risk of fighting me versus any possible punishment for failure. "I have a younger brother in your territory. He says you saved his life." "What's his name?" "Usza." I remember the man. Saved his life seems like an overestimation. I killed an orc. It was what I was there to do. "He's a sculptor, if I recall." "Yes, sir." "Haju? That's your name, right? Usza speaks highly of you. Says you're very smart." Haju nods. "Consider it a debt paid." He hands me a spear and says, "Ouch!" Then he collapses to the floor. I toss the two spears to the ground and push open the doors. I said I wish not to be. My uncle sees it's me and notices the two guards collapsed outside the door. "Nephew, don't do anything rash." I'm furious, but not murderously so. I'm not ready to become a kinslayer and kingslayer in one fell swoop. But perhaps it will add gravity to what I say if everyone believes that's a possibility. "Usza, what is the meaning of this?" my father yells. "Gemma is my true mate." They all stare at me in confusion. "The human—" "That's ridiculous!" the king shouts. "It's blasphemy!" "Son, think about what you're doing," my father says. My mother just shakes her head. You know what the pain of being separated from your true mate is. Do you wish to see me go through that? Do you expect me to sit idly by as I waste away? Never in the history of our people has a Naga ever had a true mate who wasn't another Naga. How do you know? I ask. You'd think someone, somewhere, would have written that down, my father says. Oh, really, father? As though you and the king weren't trying to figure out how to cover up the fact that your son has fallen in love with a human. My father opens his mouth to speak, but I can tell from the look on his face I'm right. Our people are proud. Too proud to admit fault or when they are wrong. I'm sure our histories have buried plenty of things that we might find embarrassing. Either you learn to accept this, or I leave Nagaland to be with her. You can't, the king starts. And I'm sure I'll need troops on my journey. You don't interrupt a king, but if you do, you better make sure to make it count. You take your troops with the Orcs at our border? You're bluffing. We have 1,000,000 epic poems about people doing far more for their true mates. Start learning to accept this. No, the king says in a steely voice. This has gone too far. He motions to guards along the walls, and 2 dart forward to grip me. It's time you're reminded of your place. I grit my teeth, maintaining eye contact with my uncle. I will not feel fear as I see another guard come forward, holding a whip. This was probably my mother's idea, and I will give no one the satisfaction of screaming, a resolution that holds strong as the first lick rips across my body. Thankfully, the pain engulfs me fully, rendering me unconscious before the 4th strike. Where is she? I scream as I jerk upright. I had been dreaming of losing Gemma, but as I search the bed that I was brought back to and find it empty, the panic surges within me. All sense of calm is gone. I'm out of patience. Ignoring the pain rippling through my body, I shove up off the bed. I have a feeling I know exactly who took her, and I don't have time to waste. How dare you! I roar as I force open Evia's doors. She only laughs as I stalk forward, forcing her out to the balcony. Of all the people who have been convinced I plan to kill them today, the one person I'm closest to sending to the next life doesn't seem to understand the danger she's in. You don't need her, Usza. I'm to be your mate. Our union would be perfect. I could bear you many children. We could start right now. She lightly rakes my chest with her claws. If the gesture is meant to be enticing or arousing, it fails miserably. I snatch her wrists and pin them to the wall above her head. Oh, if you like to play rough. She grinds her tail against mine. I slam my body into hers, smashing her into the stone wall before shoving her away, and she collapses to the ground. At first, I think she's crying like her tears will save her, but then I realize she's laughing. She's crazy. You'll never get to her in time. We took the quickest path to the Orc territory. You took her back to the Orcs? Yes, she hisses excitedly like I'm supposed to be impressed. I swallow down my anger as best I can. You're lying. We've never been able to get them to speak with us. You've always sent men to negotiate. You've lain with them? Oh, not myself. I'm saving myself for you. Minotaur, damn. You can't have possibly done that. She laughs again. What? Talk to the Orcs or given them Naga to screw. I can be very persuasive. She must still be in the castle. There's no way you have gotten her out of the castle without me or my men knowing. I could if I used the tunnels. The tunnels are a myth. No, the entrance is in the castle stables. Easy escape for the royal family all the way to Vornoru River Pass. Territory now bordered by the Orcs. Exactly, made delivering her to them so very easy. She laughs hysterically. Now you die. What? You betrayed our people, worked with an enemy and gave them Naga women. But I did it all for you. You're crazy. No, I'm brilliant. Her voice stops when I seize her. She looks in my eyes like she expects me to lose control and screw her right there. Oh, Usza, I knew you would. A final look of surprise crosses her face before her words turn into a scream as I throw her from the balcony. They'll find her body soon, but I don't have time to sit around and wait to explain it all to them. Right now, I have to find Gemma.
Chapter 23, Gemma. After being taken to the castle stables, Mary, Joshua and I are loaded onto a carriage. One Naga pulls a lever, and I hear the sound of stone grinding on stone as some kind of large trapdoor opens up in the floor. I hadn't expected Ivaya to sneak us all out via a secret tunnel. I hadn't expected Ivaya to sneak us out at all. I see her talking with her men. She gives one last look at me through the carriage window before she waves goodbye with a satisfied smile. Yes, I'm sure she's happy to see me gone. But it doesn't matter. This is keeping Usza safe and getting Mary and Joshua out of this place. It's all for the best, even if the way she smiles at me makes me nervous. With a crack of the reins, the carriage lurches forward down the slight incline until we are in the tunnel. The sound of stone scraping across stone sounds much louder in the tunnel, and everything is darkness until several torches are lit. One of the guards opens the carriage door and hangs a lantern from the ceiling. "Thank you," I say, but he just closes the door behind him. Ivaya's men escort our carriage through a series of secret tunnels. It's a long, dark ride, with only the torches carried by the guards lighting the path ahead. Inside the carriage, Mary and Joshua both look weak by the dull glow of lamplight. Given the stories they tell me about their master, I can see why. "Did you find anyone else? Sasha? Glenn?" Mary shakes her head, no. "We heard some other humans were found, but nothing more," Joshua says. "But what about you?" "What do you mean, what about me?" "How was your stay in Nagaland?" Joshua's smirk tells me all I need to know about the answer he expects from me. I almost lie. I feel it forming on my tongue. The story about how the Naga that found me treated me terribly, degraded me, stripped me of my humanity, used and abused me just as theirs had. "I was lucky," I say instead. Even though I will never see Usza again, even though once we are dropped off, we will never see Naga again, I can't lie about my time with the Duke. He deserves better than to have his name dragged through the mud and be accused of things he just didn't do. So, I tell my friends everything. Well, not everything. I do gloss over certain intimate details. When I'm done, the carriage is still rolling on, and my friends stare at me, saying nothing. They must hate me or think of me as some sort of traitor to our race for falling in love with a Naga. "I'm sorry," Mary says. "What?" I feel like I missed something. "I'm sorry you had to leave him. He sounds like an honourable man." "Yeah," Joshua adds. "And thank you. You could have just left us behind, but you stuck your neck out for us. Again." "I couldn't just leave you two behind." Mary crawls across the carriage floor and throws her arms around me, and then the dam breaks. I hadn't realised how on the verge of tears I'd been this whole time, but it was like her embrace was the permission I needed to be allowed to cry. And then it all came out. I loved Usza. I still love him. And I'll love him until my last breath, but I couldn't keep him from his people. They were too important to him. He'll be angry when he finds out. But I hope he'll learn to forgive me and move on in time. He deserves to have a family, a mate who can bear him children. While we managed to make sex work between us, that was probably as far as it could go. Our two races were just too different to have offspring together. What happened between Usza and I was something beautiful, but it was too good to be true. Eventually, something would have spoiled it. I'm uncertain exactly who did and did not consider it taboo to have sex with a human, but I got the impression the royal family looked down on it. Someone in Usza's position with a human wouldn't have been tolerated. But I miss him so much. Joshua comes around the other side of me and embraces me as well. I cry into his shoulder until I pass out. I snap awake when the sound under the carriage wheels suddenly shifts from sandy stone to forest road. Looking out the window, I see we've come out of some sort of cave. It's light out, and the air is fresher. We ride for a little while longer, until the driver halts the hokin and the door is opened. Mary, Joshua and I stumble out into the sunlight. Going from a dark cave to the outside makes everything seem way too bright. I have to close my eyes for a minute and try again. I don't know how long we were in that tunnel, but it must have been quite a while. The sun has shifted to the other side of the sky. I don't feel desperately hungry, so it hasn't been a day. We must have travelled something like 5 hours to get here. Those tunnels were very efficient. The Naga appear on high alert, and I wonder why we stopped. They look around, peering into the deep forest and flicking the air with their tongues. There doesn't appear to be anything around here, but then I smell wood smoke, like from a campfire. Someone's nearby. "Look out!" Joshua yells as orcs appear between the trees. But the Naga doesn't seem at all disturbed or even surprised to see the orcs there. The leader of Ivaya's guard and, oh gods, him. The lead Naga is talking to the tall orc with the scarred nose. Number. This can't be happening, I say, though I feel like the words are half dead before they reach my lips. After everything that's happened, we're back in the clutches of the same orcs who wanted to eat us before. I turn to run, but there's a Naga standing right behind me with his arms crossed over his chest and an expression that says, "Go on. Try me. See what happens." Both Mary and Joshua look even worse now than they did while in the carriage. The Naga and the orc talk in a language I don't understand. And while I can't make out the words, the tone and mannerisms tell me all I need to know. These two are very familiar with each other. What would a bunch of Naga want from orcs? It makes no sense. Perhaps my opinion of Naga was too affected by Usza. But he wasn't the only Naga that had treated me kindly. The healer helped heal my wounds and didn't seem to look down on me. Ireko seemed to appreciate that his employer had changed his habits with me around. He'd even started to teach me how to read Naga. I was just beginning to learn the alphabet, a graceful, flowing script that more resembled art than writing. I never got to spend much time around Usza's general, Kajir, but he seemed like an honourable man. But these Naga certainly weren't the type to treat us well. They were handing us over to the orcs. And Ivaya. I feel like such an idiot for believing her. Oh gods, what have I done? I was stupid to listen to her. She just wanted Usza as her mate, and I was stupid enough to assume that would be a mutually beneficial arrangement. I look around frantically, trying to find some escape route we could take if we all made a run for it. But instead, I just see more orcs. They were everywhere. With just the 3 of us now, I can't believe we're going to be enough to sate their appetites, no matter what those appetites may be.
Chapter 24. Usza. This will be dangerous, I tell the 15 soldiers I brought with me. We can't march through the castle armed, so we will be going into battle without weapons. One of the men laughs, extending his claws one by one. Didn't you always say a Naga's body is his most deadly weapon? It's good to know you listened. This is an unsanctioned mission. I'm retrieving the human woman Gemma. She's my true mate, even if the king doesn't believe it possible. None of them seem at all surprised. I will not order you to come with me, but I'm asking you as comrades to help me rescue my true mate from the clutches of the orcs. If you're coming, meet me at the stable doors in 5 minutes. I return to my room and quickly scrawl a note detailing Ivaya's treachery and my plan to rescue Gemma. If I don't return, I want someone to know what happened. When I get to the stable, all 15 soldiers are waiting for me. Where's the tunnel? I ask the stable master. What tunnel? The secret escape tunnels? Those are a myth. Not according to a crazy woman I just hurled off a balcony. All right, everyone, search the place, I order my men. But you two, I say, pointing at the largest soldiers. Come here. They glide up behind me, one standing off each shoulder as I look at the stable master and say, tear his arms off and beat him to death with them. What? No! The man shrieks as my soldiers grab him. He tucks his arms against his body. I don't know how to open them, he screams as my men grab his wrists. I hold up a hand to pause them before they cause him serious injury. But you know they exist? You have to understand. It's my job to not talk. I understand. But you see, someone kidnapped someone precious to me, my true mate. They said they sent her away via the tunnels, and that they're going to be ambushed by orcs. I don't have time to play games. My mate's life is at risk. I'll tell you what I know. Just please have you men put me down, the stable master begs. I nod, and they release him. Thank you. You're very gracious. I don't have time. Speak, I snap. Whenever the tunnels have been opened, someone goes down that hallway first. They always have me wait in my office until I hear them close. What does it sound like when they close? Stone rubbing against stone. I promise that's all I know. I turn to my soldiers and say, find a lever, button, or something. Once my soldiers have a better idea of where to look, it's not long before I hear the doorway opening. We're taking some mounts with us, I tell the stable master. I'll help you get them ready, he offers. You're fastest. Yes, sir, just let me get you out of here. It's not long before my men around mount up and race down the tunnel, torches held aloft to light our way. Ivaya was working with the orcs. I still have trouble wrapping my head around it. A Naga betraying her own kind. What could possibly motivate that? But the woman was not well. She gave them Naga women and probably helped them in so many other ways. When I find Gemma, I'm going to get the troops I need, and then I'm taking care of the orc threat once and for all. The tunnels are long and straight. Whoever was responsible for building these took great care in making sure they could be used quickly. I'm not sure how long we ride. Being underground makes it easy to lose track of time. I hear the way the sound of the Hokeen's hoofbeats changes slightly, echoing differently as we near the end of the tunnel. It's getting dark when we burst forth from a cave, almost colliding with an oncoming carriage. I recognize the driver. He was one of the men harassing Gemma. I slip from my mount and seize the driver. Where's the human? Where's Gemma? I'll never find out if he knew because he decides to attack me first. His claws tear into the flesh of my chest and belly before I throw him from the carriage. A skirmish breaks out all around me as my soldiers clash with the guards loyal to Ivaya. I grapple with the driver. I don't like killing other Naga, and I've already had my fill of it today. But these men, even if they hadn't been responsible for taking Gemma, have been conspiring with the enemy. They chose this path, and they must face the consequences for it. Where is she? I yell into the driver's face before planting my fist into his gut. He laughs, something unnervingly close to the hysterical laughter of Ivaya. The orcs have her. She either dead or wishes she were. He takes a swipe at me with his claws. I lock up his arm and bend the elbow the wrong way until something pops. He cries out but doesn't stop trying to attack. He doesn't stop until I claw his throat out. I see all my men are slightly roughed up but no serious injuries. I pick up a spear and shield from the fallen warriors, and my men gather what weapons they can find. Quick, find the trail, I order. My men and I follow the carriage path to where they turned around. I can still taste them in the air. Orcs have been here. We follow the trail until we crest a hill overlooking a temporary orc encampment. I can't see Gemma, but there are several tents she could be in. I signal my men to follow me back down the ridge. As I tell them my plan, I wish Khazir were here. I'm confident we can surround the camp, but I'd want another sword arm with me, and he was also so good at finding any flaws. I'm angry, I'm tired, I'm wounded. I'm not at my best. But I'm sure I'm thinking clearly enough to plan to raid an orc encampment. Please, Gemma, still be alive. We spread out around the encampment, and when I've given my troops enough time to get into position, I give the signal, and we swarm the orcs. It's chaos for the first few moments as the brutes scramble to hold off our assault. We smash through their defenses with the element of surprise. In moments we've cut down their numbers by half. Unfortunately, that still leaves us outnumbered. But I only brought the best of the best with me on this mission. These are men who have killed many orcs and know how to fight. It means I don't have to worry about them. They can handle themselves. I focus on finding Gemma. The air stinks of orc, but I can detect the subtle traces of her scent, usually so pleasant. But that fear that soured it the first night we met is back, and much more intense. Gemma, my Gemma, who had seen so many horrors in her life, had watched friends, her found family, be eaten by these beasts, was once again in their clutches. They must have walked her all over this damn camp of theirs. I cut down any orc who dares get in my way. I move from tent to tent, tracking her down. Then I see 4 orcs running towards me with machetes raised. They're calling for my blood. The biggest among them is an ugly bastard with a scarred nose. He points his blade at me. Did that Naga bitch finally double-cross me? That Naga bitch is dead, I say, watching as the orcs try to circle me. I'm near the center of the camp. I think I've moved much further than the rest of my soldiers. A stupid move made in a blind rage. But unlike my cousin Akuru, I can focus my fury. I can tame the beast and turn it into a weapon. And you're next! I lunge for him.
Chapter 25. Gemma. Did you hear that? Mary asks, her voice just a panicked whisper as we sit tied up inside a tent that smells of fear and orc. Her eyes widen as she reaches out to grab me, unable to because of the distance between us. I don't answer her, because of course I did, and there is no way I want to alarm her even further. Both her and Joshua have been such a consolation to me. Will this nightmare never end? At first, it's the sound of heavy steps meeting the ground, and then the cries of battle and pain that come from the orcs outside. From the sounds of it, they are not faring well. I've been in enough of these situations to know the noises that escape a dying body. For a moment the commotion calms, and we all take a collective sigh of relief. But this doesn't last long. Screaming pierces the air, raw and brutal, and a tall orc dripping with blood charges into the tent, his machete aimed clearly in our direction. If they cannot have us, then no one will, it seems. But this orc is too close, and the look in his eyes far too cruel and determined to hope that this will be anything other than the end for me and the others. Strangely enough, it is them that I feel for the most. I have fought many times, and always knew this day would come. It is impossible to engage in combat without facing that fact. Now, I raise my chin, trying with all that I have to remain strong. Because even in death I won't show weakness in front of these vile creatures. They can take everything from me, it's what they have been doing to us forever, but I won't give them the satisfaction of offering up my fear. As I wait for the blade to sink into my body, and my life flashes before my eyes, my only regret is not seeing Usza again, and not telling him that I love him. That from the first moment I laid eyes on him, a being so different to me and in so many ways, I was struck by everything that he is. My head still held high, I take in a deep inhale, the face of the orc with his wild eyes, pressing closer to mine, so much so that his hot, rancid breath mists my skin. Then I close my eyes and hope that if there is another world after this one, it will be a fraction kinder for all of us. When I feel nothing but the thud as he hits the ground, I open my eyes, looking up not at the beast that was about to take my life, but Usza, the Naga that has stolen my heart. Tears stream freely down my cheeks as he glides to me, slashing off my ropes and taking me in his arms. I sink against his chest, never feeling safer than when I am with him, despite all my skills, my experiences, the ways I have learned to fight and navigate this world. "Are you okay?" he says against my ear. "Did they hurt you?" "I am fine now, Usza," I confess, clinging to him in an act of such desperation I'm shocked by it. "You are quite sure?" he hisses. "Usza!" A rabble of green skin and tusks barges into the tent, and he pushes me away, the look in his golden eyes so full of rage and protective instinct, I immediately sense the shift in him. "Get back, Gemma," he commands, turning to face the orcs that now come at him with their axes and machetes. "I'm going to cut you up and feed you to your pet, Naga. And then when she is fat enough, I am going to feast on her," says one of them. His words sicken me, and yet they seem to have a much different effect on Usza. "You orcs are more stupid than you look," he sneers, rising to tower above them. "Now you will die a much more painful death than your friends out there, and nobody will want to eat you, not even swine." He pulls back his spear and readies his shield. I've seen him fight like this before, when I was last at the mercy of another that wanted to take me for his own. "Ah!" They charge at him, and my heart pounds in my chest, seeing that he will need to battle 3 of them, even though he is a more than accomplished warrior. I can't lose him now, not like this. The sound of metal against metal almost splits my eardrums, the sheer force of the orc clashing with Usza's shield being enough to know this will not be easy. Though a part of me wants to fight alongside him, I know this is not the time or the place, and would certainly take his focus away from the task at hand. He swings his tail around, sending all the orcs crashing to the ground. The orc closest to him is the first to die, as Usza drives his spear straight through his neck. But as he promised, it isn't a painless death. A little more to the left and the orc would have died instantly. Instead, he chokes on his own blood, under the weight of Usza's heavy tail that pins him down. "Not even swine," he repeats, as he looks down into his eyes victoriously. I have never seen him this formidable as he rises to his next challenge, coiling his tail around the 2 orcs and dragging them towards him. But they are not keen to meet the fate of their comrade, and they hack at him mercilessly with their weapons. Usza lets out a cry so intense my stomach twists in horror. It's a cry I know, a battle cry that signals when a warrior is so determined to fight to the death, they almost enter another world. The roars of the orcs as they struggle to free themselves of Usza, mixed with the cries of the Naga that I love, are so visceral, so primal, that every cell of my body recognizes them. Like they belong to a part of me, of all of us, that is made up of the deep need to live, to survive, to cling on to every drop of hope that these are not the last breaths that our bodies will take. "Usza!" I cry as he recoils from the injuries that they continue to inflict on him. Blood seeps from his body, and the orcs are now back on their feet. They steady themselves, obviously feeling they can win this, even though there is less at stake for them than for him. Because I know he is not just fighting for his life, he is fighting for mine. A hideous smirk breaks out on one of their faces, and it's as if they are ready to pounce, 2 against 1, like the cowards they are. In unison they surge forward, one jumping into the air, and my heart almost stops when he brings his axe down upon Usza, who strikes out so forcefully with his shield that the orc's head comes off clean, spinning through the air and hitting the side of the tent with a thud. The final orc that is now clawing at Usza's back roars and brings his hands around his neck, and the sickening sound of a choked hiss escapes him. He grabs at the filthy orc hands, bringing his tail up and through the small space between the orc neck and his, coiling harder and harder until the grip of the orc wanes. Then he turns to face him, his eyes wild and yellow as he slowly chokes the life from him. "Usza!" I cry, as he looks up at me, his eyes meeting mine as he drops the creature. His breathing becomes ragged, his injuries feel as they are my own. "It's okay, Usza." From the depths of the darkness of Protheka,
Or clawing up from the realms of fantasy.
come the most fearsome beasts you have ever seen.
These monsters are done watching from the shadows.
Now, as they step into the light, something unexpected grips them.
Something even they can't fight off.
Love,
Vampires.
demons,
Dark elves.
gods.
Minotaurs. Creatures of light and dark.
They will protect their mates.
Do whatever needs to be done.
Morally grey heroes who will burn the world to protect the women who love them.
10 audiobooks.
Fall into over 60 hours of fantasy romance.
20 ebooks.
Over 1 million words of these brutes who will protect their women.
Even if they might destroy themselves in the process.
Get the immersive Protheka fantasy romance bundle.
For 80% off, right now, dive into Protheka at a once-in-a-lifetime discount.
The first bundle to offer both ebooks and audiobooks on worldsofprotheka.com. Protheka's magic is eternal, and this romantasy bundle will make it endless.
Chapter 26. Usza. Burn it all, I command. I want to see nothing left of any of these creatures or their belongings. Already the bodies have been heaped into a pile, their grotesque forms not worthy of a decent burial. The thought of their bodies being devoured by creatures of the ground or the air just as offensive to me. It makes me proud to know that none of my own have fallen, something I would never have been able to stomach. Losing a soldier to Naga is one thing, but to Orcs quite another. Smoke billows up into the air as the tents are eaten by flames, and the stench of scorched orc meat assaults my senses. But as much as it sickens me, I want the vile scent to travel, for every orc out there to know what awaits them if they dare venture this close to the borders of Nagaland again. "Catch," says one of my soldiers to another, as he tosses the severed head of the orc I ended to him. The other grins and throws it upon the fire where it starts to blacken. Another time, another place, another species, I might admonish them, forever mindful of a warrior's honor in death, no matter if they are friend or foe. But not now. That creature could have taken her from me in the vilest of manners, and deserves everything that came to him in life and death. In the distance, Gemma sits huddled with the other humans, Mary and Joshua, as they console each other. After everything they have been through, it is a wonder they can be such a comfort to each other. But this is something I am becoming used to with their kind. They are not like us. They are demonstrative with their feelings, unashamed to show both strength and vulnerability, and cued into the needs of others like them. I watch as Gemma holds the other female close to her, pulling her head close and stroking her hair. She must sense me watching her, looking up in my direction and catching my gaze. She presses a kiss to the top of the female's head before rising and walking towards me. I should go to her, but instead find myself just lost in the swirl of emotions that run through me. How much I want her, that I could have lost her, what I want to give and receive from her. "Are your friends okay?" I ask, attempting to show my concern for her by showing the same for them. "They will be," she says before blowing out a breath. "It's something that you become used to when you are a human." "Yes," I acknowledge, not wanting to feel the deep stab of pain that now lances my heart. "And you?" I ask, gliding closer to her and trying to ignore the pain in my tail. "I will be okay, Usza, unharmed, grateful to you and your soldiers. But more than anything, I am so happy to see you again." Her words are somewhat of a salve, and she could never know strongly I feel to be with her again also. Even if I had the words, I do not believe I could do them justice. I truly believed this was going to be it, that finally the day had come when I would... "Please," I interrupt, unwilling and unable to hear the rest of her confession. "Don't say such things, Gemma." She looks at me, almost hurt, as if I have not let her voice her feelings on the matter. "I just cannot think about what might have happened had we not come upon you in time," I confess. Her face softens, and I hope it is because she knows that it is simply the thought of losing her that makes me unable to listen to her when it comes to this matter. "You're bleeding quite heavily, Usza," she says, casting her gaze to my tail. "War wounds. It is nothing." "It's not nothing. You're hurt. Your soldiers have this. Let me take a look at you." Her concern touches me, and I see from her face that she will not let me resist, something about this thrilling me. "Very well," I concede, "but we must be leaving soon." "Let me see," she orders. Slowly I bring my tail around, showing her the worst of the injuries that plague me. I will heal quick enough, but those orcs and their weapons made quite an impression. She runs her hands gently over me, her touch a balm in itself, before requesting water from one of my soldiers and cleaning the deepest wounds. "Sorry," she says. "I probably should have said, "This is going to be a stinger." I stifle my hiss as the liquid meets my gaping flesh. She tends to me in a way that is gentle, but also practical. This is a woman that has known battle and survival, and isn't shocked by such matters. "You will need a healer when you get back." "When we get back," I correct. "Maybe, but I have known worse." "This one looks so deep, Usza," she replies. "Screw those orcs." "Indeed. Are you in a lot of pain? Because if you are, then—" "Leave it," I say, perhaps more harshly than I should. "Sorry, does that hurt?" she asks, looking up at me. When her eyes meet mine, she must know this is not why I have stopped her. My wounds are deep, and there is much pain, but I am a warrior and can handle it. "What is it?" she asks, confusion now etched on her beautiful face. "I must tell you something, Gemma." I lick my lips, wondering what the best way is to approach this, and if it is even the time, but it is as if I do not have a choice. If I do not unburden myself of this now, I feel as though I will combust. "Please," I say, opening my arms to welcome her into them. She does so gladly, and at this moment, I know beyond a measure of a doubt that this is right. I kiss her cheek, tasting all of her, the fear, the love, the essence of who she is, and press my lips to her ear. "I love you," I say against it. Her breath hitches just lightly, but it tells me that my words have landed somewhere inside her and pressed at that place. She sinks against me, her breath hot against my chest, and I can taste her joy. "You are my mate," I confess, "the only one that is, and ever was meant for me." "Usza," she breathes, pulling back and looking up into my eyes. "If you agree to take me as yours, then I will spend the rest of my life loving you, caring for you and protecting you. I will give you the life that you always deserved, one filled with beauty, free of fear, and where suffering will be nothing but a distant memory, consigned to your past." "Oh, Usza, I love you too," she says. "You will never know the deep regret that I felt at not telling you this before I was taken, when I thought I would never see you again." My heart soars. "You do?" "Of course I do. I have never known anyone like you. All I want is you. To be with you. To know you. Do you know how happy this makes me, Gemma? My life would never be the same if I were to be without you. It is not a conventional match, I know, but we will find our way through," she finishes. "We will. I will be yours and you will be mine." She smiles up at me, her eyes glossy with tears. "I already am, Usza. I always have been."
Chapter 27. Gemma. As we approach Usza's territory, I feel a sudden swell of something in my chest. I never thought I would see Usza or this place again, and yet he found me. He found me because he loves me. Seeing the way he has welcomed me, treated me, worshipped my body, and fought for me, tells me this, though hearing his words were also reassuring. "We should get a healer to take a look at you," I say, as he dismounts before helping me down. He pretends as though his injuries are not an issue, but I can tell that he is suffering. He's strong and will no doubt be fine, but even the mightiest of warriors need help sometimes, and the way that those orcs went at him with their weapons still makes my stomach churn. "I am home, and you are with me. That is all that matters," he says. It makes my heart sing hearing him speak this way, a heart that has had little chance to do anything but keep itself beating. Now it has taken on new life, and that in itself has made meeting Usza so very special. It's hard to fathom what it was like before I knew him, or what it would have been like to have lost him earlier. We make our way into his home, and I hear the small and sporadic hisses that emerge from him as he finally relaxes, the pain still there, and his wounds still fresh. When his lips meet mine, I run my fingers over his hood, the softness of his scales always a wonder to me. "Please, trust me and summon a healer." "I am not in need of—" "Healer," I insist. and then I will run that wonderfully long bath of yours, wash away the dirt, the blood, and the memories of today, and maybe get in with you. Healer it is, he hisses, a smile creeping across his beautiful lips. He flicks out his tongue, tasting the air, and I make no secret that the only thing I am emitting is my need to be close to him, to kiss him, have him caress me, and to know his body again. You see to your task, and I will see to mine, I say, planting a quick kiss on his lips before heading off to the bathroom. Catching a glimpse of myself in the mirror, I see it is me that needs to be bathing, caked in dirt, face streaked with tears. I am a mess. I start to work, filling the enormous bath, desperate to be in there with him, knowing how lucky I am to have a second chance, after thinking I had lost him and my own life, for good. I spend a while scrubbing my face, not being able to take the filth any longer, before there is a faint knock at the door. "Gemma," says a familiar voice, "are you in need of any assistance?" I open the door to the healer. "I am well, thank you. It is Usza who has sustained injuries." "You are quite sure?" "I am, thank you." "Very well," he says, gliding away. I close the door, surprised by the tears that come, keeping the deep, racking sobs to myself as I purge myself of this terrible ordeal. I can still smell the orc on me, and that in itself makes me want to vomit. But I won't let Usza see me this way, and by the time I hear the muffled voices of him and the healer in the room beyond, I have finally released the pent-up fear and sorrow, and am just glad to be back here with the being that I love. "What is it, my love?" he asks, appearing in the doorway. There is no point in lying to him, he can taste it. "I was just having a moment," I say, "but I'm okay." He glides over to me, placing his hand at my cheek. "Never again," he whispers. "Never will anything like that ever happen again." I nod and smile back at him. "And you?" "What did the healer say?" "I am fine, though I have lost a little more blood than he would like. I am told to rest, and will heal within a day or two."
This scene is about to get too steamy for YouTube's comfort, and as much as we'd love to keep going, their guidelines say we need to stop here.
To continue releasing these free audiobooks on this platform, we've got to play by the rules.
The passion doesn't end here.
Visit worldsofprotheka.com to hear the full, uncut version of this fantasy romance, and every daring moment that YouTube can't handle.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off unabridged audiobooks in the worlds of Protheka.
Don't let YouTube hold you back. Immerse yourself in a world of magic, danger, and unfiltered passion.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
Listen unabridged and you'll never want to go back.
Chapter 28. Usza. "I'm going with you," Gemma says as she reads the summons from the king. "No." "And why not?" "My love, I blatantly defied the king, beat up his guards, threatened to take away his border army, and left a dead body at the palace. I doubt this meeting will be pleasant, and I'm not putting you in danger again by putting you in the middle of that." "Yes, but you also uncovered a Naga conspiring with the enemies, and you killed the enemies they were conspiring with." Gemma's resistance should have enraged me, but I found it did quite the opposite. I was thrilled by her fighting spirit and that it was still intact after everything. She told me who the orc was that had almost killed her. I wish I'd known, or I'd have given her the chance to finish the job. Still, I'm not thrilled about the idea of her being there when the king hands down whatever punishment I'm to receive for going against him. I'd like to think that Gemma is right, and this is to reward me for discovering Ivaya's plans, but I don't want to hang her life on the hopes the king remains a reasonable man in the face of open defiance from his nephew. I have no desire to try and take his throne, but there is always that paranoia that plagues those in positions of power like his. I like my life as it is, but it might be hard to convince him my opposition only extends to how I should treat Gemma. I thought you'd want to see your friends off." I can say goodbye to them a day early to travel with you. Gemma crosses her arms over her chest and stares at me, though her expression softens. But I do want to thank you again for paying for them to travel to Milthar. I had offered Mary and Joshua options for what they could do after we battled the Orcs. They'd contemplated staying in my territory, but in the end they decided to try living among the Minotaurs, one of the only places on Protheka that a human could go and live relatively free. It was something I had judged the horn-headed people about before, but I was starting to wonder if I'd been wrong this whole time. Something I'll have to examine later. For right now, I need to figure out if there's any possible way that I can convince Gemma to stay. But loving a woman with spirit means loving her when that spirit contradicts what you want. Okay, I say with a sigh that flows right into a long hiss. But we will be on our guard. And that's different from every other day, how? Her smirk is an invitation to a quarrel. But she's not looking for animosity. She knows what getting my blood up can mean for her. I seize her wrist and pull her into my embrace. You'll have to listen to what I say when we're in the castle. But we aren't in the castle yet. I growl, pulling her in for a kiss, accepting her invitation. Gemma stands beside me in front of the king. There is no leash, no collar, no flimsy dress this time. We've managed to tailor for her some clothes that fit her body well, just in the Naga style of garments, thin and functional. I think she looks stunning, but I can see the look of consternation on my mother and father's face. The king's state of mind is a total mystery. There are others in attendance, and most of them look uncomfortable. Do they know what is about to happen? Do they approve or disapprove? Do they think the consequences are too strict or too lenient? Duke Usza. The king's voice is deep and sonorous in the throne room. He sounds much more authoritative now than when we last met. Granted, then he thought I would kill him. The fact the room is ringed with guards hasn't gone unnoticed. My men were asked to wait outside, but a shouted word from me and they'd be here in an instant. I'm certain I could protect Gemma until then, but I hope it won't come to that. Yes, King Ulrich. How may I be of service? I figure while standing next to a human woman and outnumbered, I should do my best to be respectful until he gives me a reason to be otherwise. You have been of service already, and I would like you to continue to be. I want to commend you for your efforts in defending your homeland from all threats, even those that come from within our borders. If not for your decisive action and bravery, we wouldn't have discovered Avaya and her cohort's treachery. The kingdom is in your debt. You're very gracious, my liege. I know how I would like it to be paid, I say. I can see the look on my parents' faces. They know what I'm going to say, even as they fervently hope I'll say nearly anything else. I want Gemma to be my mate, not just in spirit, but according to the laws and customs of our people. My father springs from his seat and rears up, shouting, "But the family line would die with you." You don't know that, I say. If you are concerned about children, while we have no record of a human and a Naga having offspring, we don't have any record of a human and a Naga trying. I opt not to remind them that when I first came to the chamber to tell them Gemma was my mate, I caught them discussing how to bury any mention of my attraction to her. I'm more than willing to fight my parents on this, but I don't want to pick a pointless battle and get distracted. I'm staying focused. We'll just have to wait and see. My mother cringes at my words. My father opens his mouth to speak, but I don't give him the chance. I will mate with no other woman, so you may pin your hopes for the family line continuing on the possibility that Naga and humans can have children, or settle for the certainty that I will sire no young. Ever. And if she can't conceive, what else does she have to offer you? My mother asks, sounding close to hysterical about it. I'm ready to say things that will probably end with my mother, and I never talking again when Gemma says, "Love." Everyone turns to look at her. The shock on their faces is almost enough to make me laugh, but instead, I just squeeze her hand. I will stand beside him as long as there is breath in my body. I would fight armies to be with him. He's already shown he's willing to do the same for me. I jerk her to me so that she crashes against my chest, our lips smashing together. As the sounds around me fade, I can hear the scoffs of disgust and outraged yelling, but I don't care. They should count themselves blessed that I'm able to contain myself as much as I am. If this kiss is wrong, then rightness isn't a virtue. It's a surrender, and I don't surrender. They can all choke or their own righteous indignation for all I care. I have the woman I love with me, my true mate. I will never let anyone separate us ever again. The king clears his throat. I ignore him. Gemma pushes against me lightly when he does so again, and we both turn to His Royal Highness. Very well, says the king. Gemma, by royal decree, I grant you the status as a citizen of the Borderlands and declare you are eligible to be Usza's mate. I know that when the king says she's a citizen of the Borderlands, he means her rights and protections will be questionable outside my territory, but I don't plan on much travel for us.
Chapter 29, Gemma.
Sorry for the interruption. I know you were gearing up for a steamy scene, but it's way too hot for YouTube.
If we want to keep sharing our stories for free, we have to abide by YouTube's guidelines.
To get the full, unabridged audiobook, go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Browse through unabridged audiobooks, countless ebooks, and bundles offered at a discount.
If the thought of me whispering all the dirty details into your ear isn't enticing enough, use discount code YouTube30 to get 30% off of all digital products.
Story after story, audiobook after audiobook, the worlds of Protheka are waiting for you.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
But unabridged, it's unforgettable.
Chapter 30. Usza. Gemma lifts the sweet wine to her lips and sips appreciatively, her tongue flicking out to lap at the corners of her mouth. I smile at her obvious enjoyment. I went to great pains to provide her with a sumptuous feast, made using recipes and ingredients of the finest human caliber. It was a lot of work, but seeing her appetite makes everything worth it. I was told that certain wines pair with certain food very well. Would you say that's true? I ask her, tilting my head in curiosity as I watch her chew down her food. She nods enthusiastically. I would say that yes, she says with a smile. This was a wonderful anniversary gift, Usza. The smile slips from her face slightly. Wasn't it difficult to procure all this? I take one of her small hands into my own. It was. But I would do it 1,000 times over to glimpse just a moment of happiness on your face, Gemma. I look deep into her eyes. I would do anything for you. Anything at all. And I mean it. It has been a year since our mating ceremony, and my feelings for her have only grown more intense with time. Each day I am sure that I cannot love her more than I already do, but somehow I wake up realizing that I am once again wrong. Her face lights up at my words, and in that moment the world is brighter. Well, that's good to hear, Usza, she says, placing down her napkin next to her plate and looking up at me with cautious eyes. Maybe keep that in mind when you hear my news. I sit up a little straighter in my chair. Okay, I say tentatively, scrutinizing her face for any signs of misgivings. Is everything all right, Gemma? I think so. She's obviously fighting against a smile that threatens to tip over in her excitement, although I detect nervous energy around her also. Please, Gemma, whatever it is, tell me and we can handle it together. My reassurance is all she needs to launch into an announcement. I haven't experienced my monthly bleed for over 3 months now, she says, looking at me expectantly. I simply stare back. Do you need me to call a healer? I ask, becoming increasingly more worried. Are you ill, Gemma? My confusion intensifies when she lets out a little giggle at my confusion. Maybe I should just show you, she says, beginning to rise from her chair. My curiosity is piqued, and my confusion becomes more pronounced. I half expect her to walk away so that she can go and fetch whatever it is she wants me to see. Instead, somewhat strangely, she lifts the front of her tunic, exposing the smooth, soft skin of her belly. At first, I'm not sure what it is I am supposed to notice. Then, after a moment or two, I notice the faint, iridescent outline of a glossy scale stretched to a sheen over her taut skin. Then I notice another, and another. The sides of her torso glisten with scales that run all along her skin, down towards her hips, and upon closer inspection, are steadily converging at the point of her belly button. At some point I have risen in my chair, overcome with the sight of her blooming belly, to bend before her, marveling at the familiar patterns that so closely match my own. I look up at her, my eyes wide and full of looming comprehension, although I can't quite bring myself to believe what I think she is trying to tell me. "What does this mean?" I ask her, already knowing what she will say next, but nevertheless needing to hear the words from her lips. It needs to be said out loud for it to become real. "We are beginning a new age between humans and Naga," she tells me, her face serene, and she takes my shaking hand and lifts it to rest against her belly. I believe I am 3 months along, although it could be a little more. She places her own hand against my own, and we sit together like this silently for a moment, taking in the enormity of what was being brought into the world. "Are you pleased?" she asks. When I look back up at her, there is doubt written plainly across her face. I realize that I haven't said anything to her news. I stand up, grasping her sweet face between both of my hands, and kiss her with a fervent passion. When we break apart, my mouth splits into a beaming grin. "This is so much more than I could have hoped for, Gemma," I tell her, smoothing back her beautiful hair and placing a gentle kiss on her forehead. "How could I not be pleased?" I say, choking on my own words a little. "You have given me the greatest gift." It was exactly what she needed to hear. A single tear slides down her cheek, and she leans into me, her body sagging into me with happiness and relief. I bring her body into mine, hugging her close and breathing in the sweet smell of her dark hair. "You honor the people of Naga with your gift," I tell her, almost overcome with emotion. "You honor the human race." I lift her head so that her eyes are looking into mine. "And you honor me, above all." She is still crying, but her tears are those brought on by happiness. My own pleasure at Gemma being with child nearly overwhelms me. I release her sweet face and bend down once more, cupping the swell of her stomach like an egg in my hands. How had I not noticed before? Now that I am aware of the child growing inside of her, it seems impossible that I hadn't noticed the slight bulge of her belly, protruding outwards slightly. In fact, when I think back to the last few months, a lot of things should have required more of my attention. For more than a month, Gemma had been exhibiting signs of sickness in the mornings, usually when I was still sleeping. She would run out of the room, assuming that I still slept soundly when actually I was wrought with worry. "Does this explain the sickness, Gemma? Does it have something to do with the baby?" I ask. A wave of uncertainty washes over me. What if her symptoms are some indication there is a problem with the baby? What if our union is putting undue stress on her human body? Is her anatomy reacting to the child as something foreign and unwelcome? We had assumed reproduction was not to be a part of our future. I looked down at her belly with a frown. We weren't out of the woods yet. Could she carry the child to full term? The calm smile on her face quickly puts to bed any misgivings I still hold. Her eyes are full of comfort and reassurance. "All is as it should be," she tells me, stroking my head softly. "I am eating well. I am sleeping well. The sickness is normal in humans who are growing new life." She shrugs in a way that tells me I shouldn't worry. "Nothing untoward has occurred, Usza." Despite her reassurances, I'm still very much worried. I sigh heavily. Most likely I will always worry about her, no matter how small the potential problems that present themselves. But now is not the time to dwell on that. Gemma needs to see my love for her and my joy at bringing life into the world. I will worry in my own time, and I will protect her from anything that might cause her worry in return. I slide up, kissing her deeply and with a fervent passion. "I will always love and protect both of you," I say with quiet tenacity. So much uncertainty lies in our future, but that is something of which I have no doubt.